Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Miguel. I'm calling to order this committee, a special committee on Ways and Means. At this time, I'll ask our lovely clerks to do roll call.
Chair Sanchez.
Present.
Vice Chairman Taylor is absent. Councilor Andujar. Present. Councilwoman Graves.
Present.
Councilwoman Peterson is absent. We have 3 present and 2 absent. We have a quorum.
Awesome. Thank you. I'd like to recognize our colleague Joe Davidson here, the clerk's office, our city solicitor. There he is. Thank you again for your labor-intensive work. We greatly appreciate you. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to waive the readings of item 1 through 6.
Second.
Motion made by Councilwoman Interlaw, second by Councilwoman Graves. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? The ayes have it. How are we going to start this? Hopefully not too long. Good night, Crystal.
Chairman, if you don't mind, I think it might make sense to start with the fire department and then move on to CIP. Superintendent Nielsen does have a commitment tonight, so she's requested if she goes first in the CIP order, if that would be amenable to you all.
Yeah, whatever works for the directors and you guys, we're happy to adjust.
Perfect, okay. I think for my
Swearing
it
everyone
makes
in?
sense to stay in operating and then move over to CIP, if that's all right? So,
Yeah, at this time we'll just swear anyone in that
Perfect.
might testify.
Please raise your right hands. Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? At this stage, please, for the records and first look at the first Director of Sustainability.
Chris Martin, Director of Special Project for the Planning Department.
And Rick Marsh, Fiscal and Operations Manager for our budget.
Ben Lobos, Senior Project Manager for the Department of Public Property.
Joe Mulligan, Planning and Zoning. John Rossini, Property.
Deja Cuchero, Sustainability. Kevin Pratt, Department of Sustainability.
Greg Hoffman, Department of Public Works.
Andy Nelson, Superintendent of Parks.
Brian Anderson, Department of Public Works.
Derek Siller, Chief of Public.
Sarah Severi, Finance Director.
Crystal Lindberg, Deputy Finance Director and Budget Officer.
Yeah, I think you can come up, Chief. Let the record reflect that Councilwoman Vice Chair Taylor is here.
So noted.
Sorry, that was at 5 o'clock. I realized it was 4:45, but
Wonderful. The fire department's budget can be found on page 290 in the budget book.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion to enter Exhibit 6
Thank you.
into
Yes.
the record.
So moved.
Second.
So moved by Councilwoman Graves, second by Councilwoman Interlaw. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Ayes have it.
Excellent. All right. The fire department is a revenue generating department. They earn revenue from fire department inspections, plan review fees, rescue billings revenue, and fire details, which are firefighters performing details for various city events, and rescue runs. This year's budget is an $850,000 increase over the fiscal year 2026 budget. The primary revenue that is driving that increase is the rescue run revenue, and it is supported by historical trend. Total expenditures in fiscal year 2027 are proposed at $94,953,800. This is a $1,857,036 decrease from the fiscal year 2026 budget, or approximately a little under 2%. The budget for salaries does not include any new FTEs or academies. The fiscal 2026 salary budget was $37,201,360. When we add in cost of living increases and steps, it brings proposed fiscal year 2027 salaries to $38,315,273. It's important to note that this budget is being supported in large part by SAFER funding, which is a federal grant the City of Providence has received. There are 2 SAFER grants running concurrently in fiscal year 2027 with combined total award amounts in excess of $20 million. These have enabled the City of Providence to hire, we've got a typo here, I'm very sorry, 60 new firefighters. over the past course of the couple years, and they are providing a considerable amount of reductions in salary and fringe in this upcoming budget.
So 16 should be,
It should be 60.
Oh, the bottom line,
60, yeah. Double formatting problem. Apologies. Their budget can be broken into fixed and discretionary costs. First, under the discretionary line items, is fees not classified. This is their locksmith services and Opus recertification. If you have any questions on that process, I'm sure the chief would love to elaborate. There's also a nominal increase for postage, which is supported by their historical spending trend. Dues and subscriptions are level funded, as are professional development and tuition. As our professional development and promotional exams. Tuition is increasing by $13,000. This is EMT training for our new academies and required to maintain their credentials. And legal expenses are level funded and required for the CBA. Under the supply line items, the vast majority of these supplies are considered discretionary because we can order more or less of them, but they are very critical. For example, the medical, chemical, and lab supplies are very critical EMS supplies, which we certainly would not want to run out of. There is a small increase to office supplies, which has been supported by historical trend, as is the case for the increase in lubricants. Auto parts are projected to decrease next year, which is offsetting some of the increases we are seeing in this budget. Tires do have an increase, and that is a trend we'll see throughout the city budget. We renegotiated our tire contract a couple years ago, and we are seeing that they're increasing in cost. And as our uniforms and wearing apparel are also going up in relation to the new academies and replacements of necessary equipment. There is an increase in miscellaneous materials and supplies. These represent AFG grant matches, so the city is contributing our share towards additional grant programs. Maintenance and service also has an increase. This is due to two things. $40,000 of the $84,000 has come from the Commissioner of Public Safety's budget, so that is a transfer from one budget to another. There was also an initiative done in fiscal year 2026 to consolidate the billing cycles, which resulted in a savings in fiscal year 2026. We will be paying the full cost of all of those in 2027. So one of the things, yeah, you can kind of saved them all. Repairs to autos and trucks have been level funded at $48,500. Property and lease maintenance has also been level funded, as has been repairs to other equipment. And that wraps up the budget for the fire department.
Thank you,
Over to the
Crystal.
chief and see if he has any comments to add.
How you doing, Chief? Do you have a question before?
Well, I'll let him talk and then I have a question. How you doing?
You can go ahead, Chief.
Good evening, Chair, members of the committee. As Crystal mentioned, there's no significant changes, I'll say increases in this budget. This budget is about sustainment of the progress we've already made over the last 2 fiscal years. I don't want to sound like too overly, I forget what the word is, but anyway, thanking all of you because, 3 years ago in the first fiscal year, I was asking for significant increases in some resources and some staffing. And I know you had some healthy skepticism about like those increases are really going to become more efficient later on in future fiscal years. I hope that now you see that through that healthy skepticism, which was completely appropriate, that now we've seen that investment early on has led to, I'll say, reductions in the financial cost of our services, but not a reduction in services. In this fiscal year and continued in next fiscal year, we added 2 impact rescues, meaning 2 additional rescues are there during the day, Monday through Friday, which has decreased mutual aid reliance by 50%, which is a big deal for us, which means Providence rescues are picking up Providence residents 50% of the time more. Also, our EMS bicycle unit has now been expanded to year-round coverage. We're making truly data-driven decisions on terms of which trucks get dispatched and kind of really honing in on better response times and more appropriate resources. So while this budget doesn't ask for anything overly expensive and just sustains what we're at currently, I just want to make sure that everyone realizes that we still have increased services quite dramatically, even with this more efficient budget.
Thank you, Chief. Madam Clerk, we let the record reflect that Councilwoman Peterson has joined.
So noted.
And then if someone could get another chair.
There's a couple of them there.
Thank you. Committee members, questions, Councilwoman Graves? Councilwoman Andrew?
My question is, now that we're going through this mess, how do you think the cost of gas is going to affect this budget and stuff now? I mean, when we were planning this, none of us knew this was gonna happen. So how is it gonna affect you and how? Because you got extra vehicles and...
Yeah, I'll say in the fire department budget, there will be some increases, and you'll see that reflected in like tires and lubricants, because even before, I'll say the global issue with Iran, we were already seeing increases in those costs. But our fuel consumption is in public property, which, not to say that it's not a problem, but it's John's budget. But you're exactly right. I mean, we are seeing it even in so the only really fuel that we purchase is for like our ventilation saws, that true fuel, you see little cans in like Home Depot, those costs have rose dramatically in the last few months. So I can only imagine what the fuel costs are citywide. But that's all held as one salary.
And you're fighting it.
I can tell you we did increase the cost of fuel this year.
So you
I
did?
believe it was at least a $400,000 increase, but we'll review it in more detail at Public Properties Operating Budget.
Okay, and did you add the increases for the other things that he's talking about?
We do, in our budget, the two items that were driven by that same issue are reflected in there too.
Okay. My other thing is the uniforms. I understand you're getting these uniforms, they gotta be swapped out after 10 years, or if there's a tear, or how are we doing with the uniforms?
Yeah, so our fire protection gear, our protective ensemble, the bright yellow and triple chin that you see, quite recently in the last few years, they've made a kind of 10-year expiration date on that gear. Thankfully, we've gotten to a point now where we are on a good replacement cycle. Okay. In fact, last year, about January of 25, we transitioned away from PFAS containing fire gear too. Now, do we still have PFAS gear? Certainly, the older stuff, as it gets cycled out, will be replaced with PFAS gear, but now almost 18 months ago, we transitioned away from that. Then that uniform line item you see, and the increase that you see in that budget is also by contract a requirement that each firefighter is paid an $800 stipend to maintain their actual station uniforms.
Yeah.
And because there's about 54 firefighters, I want to say, that now have gotten a year on the fire department, that's when that $800 starts to kick in, and that's the increase, because otherwise that uniform budget line item would be flat from current year to next year. So we've done a good job maintaining that supply chain.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilwoman Andrew?
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Chief, and our budget officer, as always. I had a few quick questions and one quick statement. The first is just to say thank you. You guys do such an amazing job. And I know whenever I have a question, you were like 30 seconds and you reply, and I'm like, I don't know how he's doing this. But you guys have had a lot of really high-profile fires as well this year, and it's just an honor to get to work with you. And I also just wanted to call out, you mentioned the first year we were together, the questions about the staffing and the increases, and I was just noticing in the callback line, in fiscal year 24, it was like almost 11 million for callbacks, and then because of like all the work you've done, it's like half.
Yeah.
And so that's really amazing that you've been able to do
I
that.
appreciate you identifying that. And just to put it in context, so this next fiscal year, the request that we're asking for callback and overtime is the lowest in true dollar amount since fiscal year 2008. So a very long time. And that's not adjusted for inflation or cost of living increases. In true dollars from 08 to now, it's the lowest it's ever been.
That's awesome. So I just wanted to say thank you for that, because you did say it's going to happen, hold tight, and you were totally correct, and just want to acknowledge out loud that did happen.
We trusted you.
Yeah, we trusted you, and also it happened, so thank you. And then I had two questions. One is, we have a lot of safer funds in the budget. Are we at all worried about any, because of all the chaos at the federal level, I'm just going to keep being the one to talk about the chaos, any of that getting cut back?
To a point, yeah. So far they've come in. I was just talking to Deputy Commissioner Lane about it, how in terms of the reimbursement, I'll say the time in which it takes is much longer right now, because a lot of that staff isn't working.
It's a god, yeah.
But we have been getting the money quite regularly. It's just slower than it traditionally is.
Okay.
I'll say putting on like my policy hat in terms of what that looks like as a national landscape. More red states and more, I'll say more conservative states take a lot more of that funding than blue states do. So I would imagine out of all the buckets of cash, that maybe when it gets left alone. And so far, it's been pretty strong year over year, and federally, that bucket of money comes from the AFG and SAFER programs at FEMA, have been level funded for years, so it's not as if everyone's asking for an increase. So
Okay, so it's not making.
theoretically, we should be okay.
And then, nope, that was actually my last question, yeah. I'm excited to see what happens with the Rochambeau Fire Station, is the only other thing.
I'd love to live.
I know, that'd be amazing.
Councilman Taylor.
So, okay, I got a few questions. The chief, I was just looking at the chief of EMS is in the union?
No.
None? Why does it say chief of emergency medical? FU means fire union, right?
I'm not sure I produced that document, but I imagine it's just a typo, but the chief of EMS is not in the union.
Oh, okay, okay. So, everybody else up to deputy chief is in the union, right?
Correct.
And how are they, is everything, okay, so I know lieutenant captain, I know battalion chief. Is deputy chief, is that a test as well?
Deputies, no, it's an interview and a selection
Why is that?
by the CBA.
Personally, I think that should change, because I don't think that should be, so who picks them? You do?
Yeah.
I think that should be a test as well, just as the others have, that's a CBA thing. Okay, so now, rescue 8 and 9, I know are in service, right?
Yeah.
What are the hours they're in service?
9 a.m. to 7 p.m., Monday through Friday.
Okay. And how many, you might not know this, but how many out-of-town rescues still come into the city?
The rate has decreased by 49%. So last year, as an example, we had about 2,000 mutual aid rescues come into the city.
For the whole year?
For the whole year. And this year, so far, we're on track to be half of that.
But in that half, we're losing money, right? Because we gotta pay
The half
that.
that's left?
Yeah, not awful, but I'm just saying.
Yeah.
If we had another additional.
Yeah, we would theoretically recoup that revenue, you're right, yeah.
In your opinion, what do you think, and I'm just not holding you to it, but if 8 and 9 were to go in service, do you think that would go, what do you think? It's all hypothetical. What do you think that would drop down to?
So I think, you mean 8 and 9 win service like all the time?
Full-time, yeah.
I don't think it would drop entirely, because
No, I know it's still some, but I mean, because say it's 1,000 runs,
But
that's 1,000 that we're not getting as in, money-wise. We're still getting 8 and 9 from 9 to 7.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
you're
9 to 7.
entirely correct. What I would say is, the most advantageous thing would be able to get more staffing during those same hours. Because the overnights are dramatically slower than the daytime. Like after 10 p.m., our call volume drops dramatically. And so the more rescues that we can have during, I'll call those peak hours, from, truthfully, it's really 10 a.m., probably 10 p.m., recognizing there's also value in the workload that every rescue is doing. So Rescue 4, as an example, is doing 6,200 calls a year, right? So what nationally what they utilize for EMS units is called unit hour utilization. And so nationally, unit hour utilization should run between 35 to 50%. So if you're at 35%, all right, your rescue's being utilized, you don't need to add another one. When you start to get to units that have 50%, that's when you should decide to add another truck or reorganize your trucks. Rescue 4 is the only one that hits over that 50% to 54, 55%, whereas Rescue 2, Providence Avenue, it's on the outskirts, it's in a kind of a less demanding neighborhood, it's at 38%. So I think the issue is the way the runs are spread over the 7 rescues, but 8 and 9 make an impact. Adding 8 and 9 overnight, if I had to just take like an educated guess, I'd say about 15% more. But reality is that if we had those extra hours, I would advocate first to add a 10 during the same time that 8 and 9 is to capture more of those mutual aid that design. Because you're right, we're leaving money on the table.
Right, and 8 and 9 is running both of them on Harvard Avenue?
Both of them, the trucks are stored there. Quite honestly, once they go on their first call, they're never back there, but yes, they're both stored there.
Okay, because I know Rescue 9 got hit the other day, and I know there's not enough room up there.
No.
I've gone by and Harvard Avenue and seen it hanging out. And I'm like,
We're at like a storage premium as a city right now with trucks.
The bike patrol, like I've seen them out in the winter time, is that voluntarily or?
It's all volunteer, and quite honestly, I shut it down for a solid month or so because of the snow and the cold, and I got pushed back that why did you shut it down, we want to work it.
They do want to work, okay.
Yeah.
I see them out there, I'm like, oh my God, they're gonna be freezing. I'm cold looking at them.
Even today, it was cold, it was rainy, what I tried to tell them on those days, like stop into some of the businesses, stay 20 minutes there, go on to the next one, because it's that presence that makes people feel comfortable too. But yeah, it's voluntary.
And now I'm gonna get into the schools, which I know you knew I was gonna ask these questions. So, you know I have a problem with the schools, but here's the problem. Well, let me ask you the first question, is how much did we pay for lateral firefighters for them to be hired?
I want to say total 25,000? About 25,000? About 25,000 in total.
Total, so the ones like Pawtucket, Portsmouth, there was total 25,000?
Total 25 grand.
The others we didn't have to
All in,
pay.
we haven't spent anything more than that on laterals, period.
Because, don't know if you know this, council members, Mike member that was in here, that we approved one lateral school.
Yeah.
And from 2023 to now, we've had, and correct me if I'm wrong, the 53rd, the 54th, and 55th was all lateral schools. Then we went to a traditional school in the 56th, went to a lateral in the 57th, and then now we're in a traditional, the 58th. Is that correct?
Yep.
So you know the problem I have with this, because we're not hiring Providence residents. And I know I've talked to you and I've talked to the mayor, and I know they changed it on the website to like 2050, which that's fine, because I don't even know if they'll be around. I doubt it'll be around by then. But I personally had a problem with the 57th, I guess it was, that I had a constituent, just to let the, no, that I had a constituent in my ward that applied for the lateral, was in another fire department. And I reached out to the chief and we talked. I was a little upset because he didn't get hired. And the problem was that I thought was that there was only 3 Providence residents that were hired. I'm sorry, there's only 3 Providence residents that put in for that school. They hired 2, which was the 2 that came out of the high school. They were the 2 high school. And they didn't hire this kid. This kid's eventually, he's going, he's at, he was hired by Central Falls. But I don't think we're sending them a strong message by not hiring our own, considering this kid fit all the check marks. He was Spanish, lived in the city, family lived in the city. Plus he was a Ward 8 resident. So that's a really,
Extra qualification.
that's what really got me upset. So that's why.
Can I follow up with that question?
Yeah.
Just to piggyback real quick, out of all the lateral transfer academies that we've had, how many, if any, of those firefighters are Providence residents?
Some of them are, I don't have the numbers, but I can definitely get them for you. But to put it in a little bit of perspective, so right now we have a school that was meant to be 25, this is entry level, the one that's going on currently. And so, while I 100% agree, I wish 100% of our firefighters were city residents, the reality is they're just not applying. And so even with the entry level, in a 25-person school, we had 4 city residents. So in theory, if laterals were displacing those city residents, then when we did an entry level, we'd have 100%. We're just not getting the applicants. And that's where I need like all of your help. And so what we also did is we started opening the application for entry level now. So join ppdfire.com, the entry level application's open. Because part of my theory is we cast a wider net. And part of our recruitment issue in the past has been we hire, 7 years go by, we don't hire, and then we hire again. Well, how can we go out into the schools, go out into the community, and ask these kids to apply to become firefighters when I can't give them a straight answer on when the next academy is going to be? It's hard to tell a 19, 20-year-old kid that, hey, stick with it, 6 years later you might get a fire department job. So the idea is if we keep the application open all the time, whenever we're having a conversation with these kids, like put the application now, and now that we're up to a sustainable staffing, we're going to do small academies every other year. And so now I can tell them, hey, put it in now, 6 months or so, you're gonna hear from us. And then it's a choice, and you decide whether you want to go forward with it. But what I'll say is, even though, you know, I can understand that, hey, conventional wisdom would say that, hey, laterals have displaced diversity, whether it's a person of color or a female candidate or a city resident, the numbers aren't showing that. And so to put it in perspective, from 2017 through 2019 through 2022, our female candidates, our female firefighters, incumbents on the fire department is about 5.5%. It's been flat for that for, I'll say, during the period of time in which we've made diversity in the workforce a priority, which really started with like Mayor Cicilline's administration, and then every administration has taken that on as a goal, has remained flat. And so while not monumental numbers, today our female workforce is 6.5%, so it's moved a full percentage point with that predominantly being lateral hires. In terms of people that identify as something other than white Caucasian, those persons of color, our percentages have grown from 27% to 31%. So again, not monumental increases, but increases. And then with city residency, we've been about 10, 11%, pretty flat for that same period of time. And today we're almost at 14%. So while we haven't made, as much strides as we can or should, we've made increases. We are the most diverse fire department in the country, in the state. Countrywide, the percentage for female firefighters is about 3.5%. So while 6.5% ain't great, we're beating our colleagues. Same thing with people of color, about 22% national, and we're 31% here. Like I said, we have work to do for sure, and I 100% agree with Councilman Taylor. Like, we need to make sure we're giving these good jobs to people in the city and diverse workforce. But we are making strides in that direction. We have the most diverse department we've ever had before.
Thank you, Chief. I just have a quick follow-up on something you said, and then we'll go back to Councilman Taylor. In the most recent academy, where you said there's 25, how many total applications were received?
So that's spot on. So we typically had about 1,500 to 2,000 applicants in the past. This last time we had 400 apply, about half showed up for the written test. And then this entry-level academy was off the same list as the last entry-level one at the council. So we took about 75 voters in total, entry-level, from that list of 200 or so. We lose a lot, they just don't show up for the written, and then we lose a lot in the agility, which quite honestly are the only real two measures that we have. And that's kind of why my goal is cast a wider net, because we're just not getting the applicants in to then get to that pool. And like I said, I made a note to get you the numbers on residents that are laterals, but I'll also get you numbers on residents of those applicants, because they're just not great numbers.
Thank you. I think that would give us just a better understanding. You have
just
something,
follow up on
of
that,
course.
if that's
And then-
okay?
and then we will go back to
Yeah, it's
Councilman
just
Taylor,
about-
to not get too distracted.
Are we, we're on some side quests, but it's really, and I don't know if you know this, but, and if you talk to your fellow chiefs about this, but are we seeing Providence residents apply for courses outside of Providence? Is that more attractive to them in some way? Like
No,
some
so
calls or-
actually, I'll say it's not a phenomenon specific to Providence.
Oh.
Everyone's struggling, police and fire, public safety generally, just people aren't applying. Talk to my colleagues in West Warwick, they're not even getting enough applicants for the positions they have. So that would assume every applicant is gonna get hired, and they still don't have the numbers. I don't know what the phenomenon is, because it's national, it's not just locally.
Yeah.
Colleagues across the country, Providence will probably what's called the Metro Fire Chiefs. It's about 150 of the larger urban departments in this country, and they're all having the same recruitment issues. In
So it's not
terms
like
of
the Providence
compensation and
folks are
benefits,
probably, yeah.
Providence is on the top of the food chain in terms of that, and our schedule's attractive, not the workforce that we work, but like the schedule on the trucks.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, other than I think perhaps there's a lack of education on what the job entails.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the council,
Can be
in the future, we can be helpful, having like smaller neighborhood type driven recruitments.
Yeah, I think we could all help you out with that. Before Councilman Taylor continues, Madam Clerk, we let the record reflect that Councilwoman Harris has joined us.
So noted.
Thank you, Councilman Taylor.
Okay, so just let me finish beating that horse, but like I said, it really did upset me that he didn't get hired. And the reason why, because I knew the kid when I was on the job, he was actually in the Fire Explorer program in the high school. So he was in the program, then he got on another fire department. And, I mean, even if he took the test regularly, forget he was not a fire department, he would've got 10 points, because he was a Providence resident. He didn't even get anything for this. He just, and I don't know who it was, but I mean, if I talked to the chief and he said, hey, you know what, there was 10 people put in for it, I wouldn't have said anything. But when you hire 3, I mean, there's 3 and you only hire 2, there's something wrong there, in my opinion. So I'm done beating that horse. My next question is, I'm gonna go back to the 2 that were hired on the school, in the school. Did they have to take a test? What was their, I know they were in the program in this high school, and they're 18 years old, and they're coming out and they're on the fire department. What criteria did they have to meet to become a firefighter besides what they were taught in school?
So the CT cadet program, I'll say CT is like the PPSD portion of it, and then there's a cadet program for the fire department. If they pass the level 1 equivalency, level 1 and level 2 firefighter training and EMT training in high school that our folks are embedded in the school and teach the program, they pass all those programs and they get their EMT licensure on their own, then they're offered a position to go to the municipal training academy. If they pass the municipal training academy, then they come to us and fold into our lateral academy, and that's how they get out. So they have to pass the test.
So they were an
in high
EMTB?
school.
They
Yeah.
weren't EMT at all?
They're already EMTs. So what happens is they're junior into senior year. It used to be Chief Ramos. Now it's Lieutenant Tabarez runs the cadet program. And so Providence Public Schools, solicit applications, the students apply. They're interviewed with a CT program coordinator through Providence Public Schools. The candidates are selected. In that, they start in that summer between their junior and senior year, and then their entire senior year, they do that firefighter level 1 and 2 level training, hazmat training, and the EMT course. They can't take the test because they're typically not 18 while they're in their senior year, and then that summer after they get out, the program is really designed to kind of introduce students to the idea of being a firefighter.
Kind of like the other kid did years ago, but
Yeah.
kind of like, got looked the other way.
Look,
But now, and I know you went there, and I'm just.
But it stings me too, because I know you called me, and I know you know that when you called me, the selection's already been made. Not to say that I would just select a candidate based on that, but I would have taken a harder look to see, was there a reason why he wasn't selected?
So when they come out with 2, they still gotta pass the EMTB, they still gotta pass the EMTC to become firefighters? like regular-
EMTB, they pass, if they don't, they have to have their EMT license to get into that municipal academy, I'll say that second tier. So they do the high school program, they get basically, Providence Public Schools have an agreement with CCRI, so CCRI teaches their EMT program.
But they still have to pass the C to be on the job, if they don't, then they're not.
Yeah, they have all the same requirements that any other firefighter in Providence would have to have, they have to have as well.
Is that gonna continue that program, or that just was for those 2
Yeah,
people?
no, so in its first year, we hired 1, the second year, we hired 2. My hope and goal, and I believe it's gonna happen, is we'll have 5 more hired this year. And that's why in the first year that we're requesting, we're not asking for an academy, because we only have 2 mandatory retirements. The vacancies will be able to absorb with CT candidates.
One last one. Of course. And I know, obviously, there's a lot of new firefighters on the job. And I'm just hearing buzz, and maybe you can straighten this out for me. That, I guess, I wanna say, the administration, meaning you, is not cooperating with, for example, say a new firefighter is assigned to rescue, and they go and they have 2 or 3 babies that die within a month or 2, whatever the reason, shot or SIDS or whatever.
Yeah.
They don't have that much sick time. They don't have that much, because they're not on the job that long. And I'm hearing, and I don't know if it's true, that's why you're here, I'm asking, that making them use their own, either their own sick, they're not being put off injured, for PTSD or whatever, not PTSD, thank you. That they have to use their own sick time or vacation, which personally, if that's happened, I think it's unfair to anybody.
Right.
But I don't know if you can explain that more, because you have more new firemen under your watch than any other chief has ever had.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to get a better picture of how you're handling that type of incidents.
Yeah, so it's not exactly the case as usually is. So last year, Ron John Assembly passed that PTSD presumptive law. And so effectively, it makes PTSD or stress-related claims just like any other IOD claim. So what happens is, you know it, but I'm pretending like you're not here. A firefighter submits an IOD claim. At that point, it's effectively just a person attesting to, I'm injured. I'll call PTSD an injury, even though we know it's not a broken leg. And so that attestation triggers, all right, provide a medical note, and then if for whatever reason the city department, myself, or really it's not me, but through our HR office, if there's some question as to whether or not this is a valid claim, it goes to that second doctor. And if there's a conflict there, it goes to a third doctor. So problems specifically to PTSD claims, as you can imagine, there's not a whole lot of doctors or medical technicians out there in that space. And there's even a smaller pool that want to take on, I'll say, they're not workers' comp, because we don't have workers' comp, but workers' comp type claims. So that's the challenge. So what happens is, while that process being adjudicated, sometimes it's really just waiting for them to provide a doctor's note. They're on their own sick time. Once we get the notes in, they get reverted back to IOD from the day of their PTSD or stress claim. And to date, not a single person has been denied. Everyone's been pushed back their sick time. And no one's been gone without pay. What typically happens is, if they don't have enough sick time, they don't have enough vacation time, the CBA allows the chief of department to approve up to 15 sick days borrowed from future banks. And so, as just like a policy perspective, I just auto approve those, knowing that most of the time, we're gonna credit you your time back anyhow. So far, I know for some folks, they get annoyed or irritated, or whatever the word is you want to utilize, because they see someone go out from an infant passing or something like that, and they're on their own sick time. But it's just a bureaucratic process. It's not like we're actually taking their sick time from them, they're getting it all.
So eventually they get it back.
Yeah.
But they're
It
not
just
seeing
takes
it
a few
within a
weeks.
week or two.
Yeah, and it used to happen a lot more when on traditional injuries like a broken leg, where they don't go and get treated at the hospital, they decide to go to their own doctor, and then there's like a misunderstanding with their own doctor that no, like, it's not workers' comp, it's kind of the same Blue Cross, you can give us the documentation, and that is the hang-up. It's like just a slow, arduous process of getting the paperwork to us, getting the notes to us, but so far we haven't denied, and I'll say we've had a significant increase in those claims too, but none of them have been denied.
So I guess to go further with that, is there something that we or you guys or can agree or to address this in a future contract, like a PTS? Because PTSD is never, and I'm going to go for even further, like what can we or what can the department do in the number of suicide firefighters that have happened in the last 4 or 5 years? We've had 3 or 4 that have happened. You know, I don't know if it's because, I don't know what the deal's with, but I've never heard of so many active firemen, and Ken been around a while, that have actually committed suicide being active. And I'm not saying it's your fault, but I'm just saying, what can we do as a city to address that?
Yeah, we've been struggling because similar to recruitment, it's not specific to us. Warwick and Cranston have had a uptick. Nationally, there's been an uptick. What I'll say is, we do a lot of point schools. We had a mental health clinician come in, and really what we're trying to do is give them more access to different levels of care. You know, traditionally we have our employee assistance program that's run through the union. That's more based on once a person like solicits help. Hey, we're trying to develop a way to have kind of help like brought to your doorstep. Like instead of waiting for you to call and go find it, you almost have to say, no, I don't want it, because it's right there in front of you. I think it gets a little stickier, it gets a little uncomfortable when it's the administration saying, hey, go see a doctor. Because now it's just like, well, do I trust that doctor? Because Silva's the one pushing it. So I don't know what that balance is at this point. We're still trying to figure out kind of how we wrap around more services. Chief Schuman, the chief administration, and I are going to meet with another clinician to maybe just have them embedded in the stations and just come, not like work there, but like come in every so often and just like have lunch with everybody and just talk to them. But to your point about like handling the claims, 100% has to be in a collective bargaining agreement in the future, because right now, the contract divisions, just like the kind of like the retirement ordinance divisions, like a true injury, like it doesn't envision something that's not tangible, like a broken leg that you can't see and touch. So I think when that PTSD law passed at the state, it really didn't go deep enough in terms of like how do these claims get adjudicated or how they get processed, because that's the hang-up, is finding the doctors that want to do it.
Well, because we're seeing younger people, the 18-year-olds coming out of the job.
Yeah.
So they went from high school to be a fireman.
Yeah.
They could be more affected by, it's their first job.
Yeah.
So they've never done anything else except go to school here.
Yeah.
So they might take it different than older people like you and the other
No, it
people
is definitely generational.
to see, so, you know. And also my last question, sorry. When they had like the Brown University shooting, do you guys still do like a debriefing afterwards, like with the guys to say, you know, anybody needs help or talk about it, blah, blah, blah?
So,
Again, same thing, younger department, we've never had that happen in as long as I can remember in the city.
So retired Captain Lancelotti is still in charge of the AP, so he came around to stations. And then as the command staff, we had 3 different opportunities for those that responded to just talk through the whole scenario, like what happened, what occurred. I know for sure one firefighter was out with stress over that. There might have been a second one, I can't remember off the top of my head. Both of them were covered and we took care of them and now they're back to work. But yeah, no, it's for sure that's something that's a little more extreme.
Is that like gonna be, I know you mentioned point schools, is that like a point school in the future to follow up on? Because obviously you talk to them, they come back to work, then they see someone else that might get shot and it might trigger something that, is it something that in the future?
Yeah, and that point school we just wrapped up, we did it, it was March.
Okay.
And that was Dr. Nicole Sawyer. She's out of New Hampshire, but she's kind of on a national circuit in terms of public safety, critical incident stress, and really what her teachings were about were like recognizing what's going on and really understanding it so that you can identify that, yes, you know, I should go talk to somebody. It wasn't so much like clinical in terms of like, let's figure it out today. It's just kind of giving you all the identification of like why things occur, what occurs, a lot of stuff we all know, diet, exercise, etc. Yeah, and we're going to maintain that going forward.
Okay, I'm done. Thank you.
Awesome questions, Councilman Taylor. I think this is a very important conversation. And Chief, thank you for what appears your willingness to be committed to this type of work. Any working environment, you know, especially when it's dominated by males, sometimes it's difficult to have these conversations. But I think it starts at the top in changing that work culture and working environment. And it sounds like you're moving in that direction, so we definitely appreciate it. Councilwoman Peterson.
Thank you very much. Hi, Chiefs. Look, ooh, I'm gonna have to find a different place. So I first want to say thank you. We've had a couple of major fire needs / emergency needs in my ward or in our ward, and I wanted to make sure that I just said thank you. The firehouse in Ward 14 is exceptional. These guys have come out to multiple calls. I mean, obviously they all do, right? But just the extent of the level of quality of care and the approach with neighbors all around has been really wonderful, and neighbors often respond about how approachable all of you are, so thank you very much for that. I'm going to go back and forth a little bit, and forgive me if I missed anything as I was coming in a little bit late. With regards to the SAFER grant, can you see me? Sorry. Do you remember when the first time SAFER grant funds were received?
Yeah.
Can you tell the date? Or like the year?
Exactly about 2 years ago.
2 years ago. And how many firefighters have been sworn in through the grant? Or with grant funds, sorry.
60.
60? Okay. And they're trained and hired through those?
Yes.
Okay.
One academy is going on right now.
Okay.
16.
Thank you. I don't foresee there being, based on my experience with FEMA, but I don't foresee there being a removal of any of that. But in the event of a potential change in that, do we have a plan B in place or something?
Yeah, and that's what I'll say, like, you know, this budget is actually going down in total over current fiscal year.
Yeah.
So that's like I'll say, exaggerated decrease. The next fiscal year, we'll see a little bit of an uptick. One, cost of living increases, et cetera, but also the normalization of that callback, right? Like I don't have another layer where it decreases further. It's going to kind of just stay flat and then go up year over year. But recognizing even absent any SAFER funding at all, and if we were just paying for it as a city, I don't have it with me today, but I ran a bunch of different stress tests in terms of where the number of firefighters in total we should have as a fire department to kind of keep that balance of efficiency.
Yeah.
It is 460.
Still 460, okay.
So at 460, we're still saving about, I'm going to use a ballpark number, about $30,000 per firefighter in terms of callback to the salary, right? After that, it really is dependent on like how many injuries do we have, what else is going on significantly. That's why I say like this budget goes down a lot because we're getting that full benefit of the savings and callback and also not paying for the salary income. Even if we were paying for the salary would not come up as high as the callback savings. The callback savings would still be great.
Yeah. Going back to kind of the callback, we noticed that you have about 16 employees that are about 32 years in.
Yeah.
Do you have any anticipation that they're going to be retiring? And if so, I know that you might have said that you allotted for 2 retirements that are kind of pending, but what would be the change to the callback situation that you've done such a great job of managing?
Yeah, so part of it is word of mouth in terms of like, most of them don't keep it quiet that they're gonna leave.
Who doesn't want a big festivity after 32
and that's
years?
why I
It's a
know
big deal.
for sure too. And then I have speculation of like another 3rd or 4th going. We have about 5 CTE candidates that are pretty much ready to start. We have the spots reserved in Municipal Academy, assuming that they finish the last couple hoops they have to jump through, I'll say.
Yeah.
So those will absorb those.
Okay.
And then there's a little bit of a savings too. Like right now, for example, we have 18 in the academy that are out on the street. So there's a few vacancies out there. So we're still saving that salary money that pretty closely offsets each other.
Okay, thank you.
Everyone here's a guy. Think about that.
Yeah.
Thank you. How many firefighters retired so far in this fiscal year?
I don't know in this fiscal year currently, but our average is about 15 a year.
Couple of years in there?
Yes, I do. I'm so sorry. My daughter texted me. Sorry.
I'll add that to my.
Can we talk about hazmat?
We can talk about whatever you want to talk
Thanks.
about.
I've learned a lot about hazmat in the past year. And I kind of want to know how much we actually utilize hazmat in the city of Providence. We've had this conversation before, but
Not often.
not often, right?
No.
So we have a vehicle.
Yes.
Right. And is every firefighter trained for hazmat, or do the firefighters have a special?
It's a voluntary team.
Okay.
There's about 25 on the team that train. They typically train off duty. They utilize grant funding for that training, and even that truck was purchased with grant funding. So from that respect, even though it's a low volume kind of incident, I'm not too annoyed with that fact because it's not our funding right now. I would argue that if it became city funding, that the state needs to kind of revamp how it works. We've had this discussion and I don't want to get too far over my skis.
Yeah.
But I just think simply for the size of the round, we just have too many teams.
Yeah.
So not enough of them go out enough to be utilized to the extent that we should utilize them.
Yeah.
Even like as an example, North Providence pushed it out and said we're not doing it anymore.
Yeah. I've seen the truck.
Yeah.
It's sitting in the warehouse. Not a warehouse in Providence. The question I have as a follow-up to the hazmat is, do the firefighters receive an additional change in pay as a result of having that extra expertise?
No.
Okay.
We, assumingly that, make it up, firefighter Graves wanted to be on the hazmat team, she would raise her hand and say, I want to be on the hazmat team. That next time we have a hazmat tech program, she'll be given time off to attend and then overtime to get the training. And then kind of knowing that all like the continuing ed training will be overtime. So like, that's kind of like the little bit of the carrot, I guess, but there's no increase in base salary or anything.
Okay. And then my last question is, with regard, I know that Deputy Commissioner Richards is segueing out, and I know how much work she does to be able to support in the financial aspect of everything the fire department does. Is the fire department going to be taking on some of the grant available? I know she's done so much, and she's been such a great manager of all of it. I just wondered if you guys were going to be kind of moving those things on to different chiefs or somebody else in your
That's really a partnership, so I'll just make it up, assuming Elaine left tomorrow.
Yeah.
I would hope it would be someone that would fulfill that role to do, because the part that she does is more like the financial arm of it, where she works very closely with, depending on like, say for grant, you know, it was me authoring it and her kind of editing it and us going back and forth to get whatever our narrative was going to be for that grant application. Or like another one, it might be Chief Schumann or someone else on the command staff. So like we have that working knowledge ability, but really we still need that like fiscal arm person to kind of do that piece of it.
I was just curious because I know that it's there's a potential opportunity of employment for somebody else. So I just wanted to kind of see how that would, if there was more of an opportunity for some of that
And the more daunting part is
description
like the
to be.
compliance after the fact, once you get the funding.
Let me tell you, as a person that does that on a daily basis, I get it.
Yeah.
The last thing I'll say is that thank you very much for having your chiefs come to our community meetings. I know that they come to mine. One thing I'll advocate for is for our community members to hear about the opportunities that the fire department has available. We have minor quarterly only, but one thing I think is really great about the community meetings in Ward 14 is that you get a different bunch every time. So different people are coming in and perhaps we still have a lot of families in the neighborhood, so maybe just that opportunity to hear that there's an opportunity available, please have them bring it up because I think it's super helpful.
Thank you. And I'll say too, like we usually do like the duty chief, whoever's on that shift. But if there's any specific topic you want to cover and you want me and the community staff to come, like we're more than welcome, we're more than willing to come.
I do have one. Lithium batteries is a big topic right now. I just want to make sure
We've had a
that,
few incidents in the
Yeah.
last few weeks too.
yeah, so something like that for the next time. That's it.
Awesome. Councilwoman Graves?
I just want to piggyback on Councilwoman Peterson's thing. I do appreciate you guys coming to all my monthly meetings. And they do get up and give us a spiel on whatever's going on. And, you know, they're fabulous. The guys are fabulous. And sometimes they switch up, but a lot of times we have the same ones. But everybody's welcome. And thank you so much for coming.
Oh, I've never had you guys at my meetings.
Oh, well, you can give them I'm sorry. Don't try and take that.
One for sale, so.
When's your next meeting?
It's coming up, it's on Saturday, I'm gonna follow.
Yeah, Kyle, can we open the doors again, please?
Yeah, Tuesday was like freezing and now it's like a.
Councilwoman Graves, Councilwoman Davidson, do you guys have any questions for, lovely
I don't
partners?
have any questions, but I gotta say, with my period of time that I've been here, I'm very, very pleased and happy with your leadership. And just hearing the council people talk about transparency, being in the neighborhood, and, you know, getting to know the people that you serve is beautiful, you know. And I've always admired you. You've been one of my fans from the very beginning, so thank you for being here tonight. That's all I wanted to say, Mr. Chair.
Awesome, thank you, Councilwoman Harris. You don't have to.
Seconded.
Oh.
Yeah, truly grateful. You've been very kind to me as I've gotten up to the start. It's been great having the department at our monthly community meetings. Actually, I was shortly going to leave for tonight, so I went at 6:30. Thank you. It's been great to work with you.
Does anyone else have any questions? I have a couple just to wrap up. Thank you so far, Chief. I always get, a lot of compliments and a lot of words of encouragement when, people see the bike program in downtown. But usually the follow-up question for someone that doesn't represent downtown is, how do we get this in our neighborhood? How do we expand in other parts of the city? What would the pathway to do something like that be?
Yeah, part of it is identifying like an area where there's like enough, like I'll say people walking around and foot traffic, like not to say that's the only area, but like a Hope Street example, like for Atwells Avenue, or areas where like that bicycle will like, I'll say have an impact on folks that are out and about. The downtown program, effectively half of the year is funded through the CARE Act grant that we have. And what that allows us to do is it's really about like overdose intervention and opioid interdiction. So the funding is specific to the rates of where our overdoses are occurring or where Narcan's being deployed. And I'm sure it doesn't come to surprise anyone that like this area has a high need for it, or at least the run data shows it. Doesn't mean we can't expand it, but if anyone has like an area that they'd be interested in deploying it, then we can figure it out. It's not like Councilman Taylor had asked, it's a voluntary program, but we have more than enough firefighters that are willing to work it.
That's awesome. Like logistically speaking, would it be possible to have like another team like rotating in different parts of the city? Like one day they're in one part, another day they're another part? Like, I don't know, like, what logistically something like that would look like?
Yeah, I mean, we would need a small investment, like, not to sound silly about it, but we don't even have a bicycle rack. Effectively, what they do is they park their personal.
You gotta speak up, chief. This is
I know.
the place to say stuff like that.
They ride down Washington Street from public safety to get to here, so not a heavy hurdle to overcome, just those small things we would need to figure out, like, is there a small SUV with a bike rack that we can do to deploy in another part of the city? For a little while, we were doing it in like the Fricker Street area, around like the Elmwood Broad Street Triangle over there. It worked for a while, and probably we may do it again because of the summertime when there's more students like kind of lingering in that area after school. So we have practiced deploying it other places, but also over there, they can grab the bike at public safety and ride it over there. Again, not a big hurdle, it's something we could definitely.
Yeah, that part of the city definitely makes sense to me, especially, you know, when there's so many students out. I'm gonna be jumping all over the place. You know, I really appreciate the conversation of Providence residents and in-house or traditional academies. How many students are in those CTE, PPSD, collab?
There's about 12 a year.
About 12. And is that, how many students are interested, or is that like capped with resources?
It's capped with resources in terms of PPSD. There has been discussions about increasing it to even 25 that the school department has mentioned. Where my apprehension comes from increasing it is we don't have the attrition rates as a department. Now, it hasn't happened yet, but assume all of them wanted to pursue a job in the fire department. I don't want to get to a place where I'm encouraging them to go to a program and then not actually have a job for them at the end.
Right.
The numbers we have now, even if 100% of them follow through, we can absorb 100% of them now. That would be my only concern about expanding it. I'll say one of my complaints about the program is it's specific to Central High School. We don't, as a fire department or city, we don't control that. It's a Providence public school decision. At least my understanding of it is that the school department wants every high school to kind of have its thing as to what's attractive to it to go there for different programs.
Right.
And so I guess the way they state it is to say that, well, if you're a Hope High School student, you can still apply to the program, and if you're accepted, you have to transfer to Central High School. Now, what I would argue against that is what junior at a high school is going to leave their friends and their established kind of rapport with teachers, et cetera, and leave for their senior year to go to another high school. I don't see that happening, but that's part. I guess I'm just venting to you now.
Yeah.
But that part of the program, we don't control that. That's the Providence Public Schools.
Yeah. No, I really appreciate you saying that, because I mean, I definitely wasn't aware. I was under the assumption that any Providence student that lived in the city had that opportunity.
And officially, they can because they can do the transfer.
Right. I mean, that's something we could definitely talk to the school, see if there's any wiggle room. Just to clarify, so out of the 12 that have historically taken that class, and we've said that year one there was one, year two, is that the only, are those the only kids or young people that had interest after completing that to continue, or was there other hurdles that they?
In that first year, we got the one that really wanted to pursue it, and then these two. The hurdle that we're having is more so with the female candidates, and it's passing the physical agility test. It's quite onerous, but that's why I'm comfortable, because what we've been doing is kind of, we still meet with those students every month about at the Division of Training and kind of coach them and kind of point them in different ways to get trained and get ready to take the agility. And that's why I'm comfortable that I think the 3 that we've hired have all been males. There's 2 females that I'm pretty confident we're going to hire this calendar year, assuming they pass the other hurdles they need to pass.
Right.
And to me, like, that's part of it too, is just, I think once one student see someone like them get through the process, it's like, all right, I can do it too. Because not everybody wants to be a trailblazer. Some want to just see that there's already a welcoming environment for them.
Right, that's a very good point. Just the last 2 questions really I have, going back to the Safer grant, this is probably for like finance too. Like what like stress tests, or like what's like the near future planning in terms of absorbing these costs once the grant comes to an end?
You know, it's certainly part of our 5-year projection. So every year, the finance department prepares a 5-year report. We present it to city council. It gets reviewed in committee. When we are preparing that, we're thinking of these things. The finance department's pretty, when we prepare this 5-year projection, we make no assumptions on changes in tax rates. So we are always assuming that the tax rates will stay flat and that the bulk of our revenue that is generated will become naturally from the growth of the levy and or revaluations as they occur. And so I can say that we're forecasting and planning for this, but you know, at this point, you know, we're just hoping that the levy continues to expand and that we're able to then absorb these costs. And to the chief's point, we are receiving some savings in callback and overtime currently, and so you know, it will be a struggle. It's going to be something we have to think about and work for, but you know, most good things are, right? And that's what this whole process is for. So I don't have a crystal ball and can tell you exactly how we're going to fill the budget gap, but it's going to be some sort of combination of finding revenue and reducing expenses, or just finding revenue.
And then to add to her point, that was part of the reason for applying for that second SAFER grant. It was intentional to wait another year so that there wasn't a cliff for that one drying up and then we have to absorb it all. So now it's kind of like there's a second tier to it, so it kind of drops a little bit, and then we still have another year and a half to figure it out in the next fiscal year after that.
Makes sense. Last question. So just to confirm, I'm sorry if I missed it, is there no anticipated, after the current academy, or is there another academy, either traditional or lateral, anticipated to happen in the next fiscal year?
No plan of doing a full academy in this post-fiscal year. FY28, yes, we will be. That's kind of, the idea is to cast that net now so that by FY28 we're ready. However, we will more than likely be hiring those 5 or so CT candidates is the goal. And that should eat up the vacancies that we have.
So is there funding in this budget for recruitment for that?
No.
No? Because I know the idea is something to do that with police. I was just making sure that that's not the same.
Correct. There's no funding for recruitment in fiscal year 27 for the fire department.
Awesome. Thank you. Any further questions for Chief Silva?
No, thank you guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I keep sliding back.
Is this all that?
So we're going to be using the CIP book. So I'll kind of do the same thing where I direct you to the department pages. Do you need copies? Because I brought it up the stairs.
I don't.
I got it.
So you guys have your CSP?
I've got it.
Thank you. I didn't bring a bag.
I may need these ones back up.
That's fine. Thank you so much.
There's enough in case of emergency, but,
Motion to enter this exhibit 7. So moved by Councilman Inhofe, seconded by Councilman Taylor. All those in favor? Aye. Any nays? Ayes have it. All right, Crystal, how are we gonna,
So if you don't mind, Chairman, I would like to just kind of walk through quickly what the CIP book is and how it's set up, so you guys understand the best way to read through this. And then I will call departments up, if you're okay with that, one at a time to review their budgets. We would like to start with the Department of Parks because Superintendent Nelson has another commitment tonight, so I'll try to make my overview somewhat brief. We did have a quick preview of what will be in the CIP at our budget overview last week. So I don't have a lot of updates in there, but I will want to make sure that you understand that this book has been presented in a format that provides you with a copy of the proposed capital improvement plan ordinance. It is broken down all of our projects by funding source, including future projects, which are unfunded at this point in time. And then we've broken them down further by department. This year what's new is we've added some spotlight projects that departments have been working on so we can see in real time where we're at with our capital dollars, which is an improvement over last year. And one thing to keep in mind that for all of the projects that are currently funded, we do have commitments and have told bondholders that that is what we will be expending these dollars on. So aside from adjusting things for spend or costs that may come in over or under budget, we do not have a tremendous amount of flexibility in repurposing dollars that have already been committed to a project. Okay?
can you say that last part?
Yes.
I think it was important.
Yes, certainly. So when you look through these pages, for example, on page 80, you'll see the Parks Department. Some of these projects will end in accounts that have 0, 0. These are projects that are not funded at this time that we are planning for and would like to aspirationally do in a future year. Things that end in a 26 are proposed to be funded with the new $25 million CIP bond in fiscal year 2027, and those are certainly up for negotiation. Items that end in 25 or 20 are items that have been previously committed and are projects that are underway, and really we do not have a lot of flexibility in repurposing those dollars at this time because these projects have been committed to the bondholders and in some cases are under contract, and so we do not have flexibility in repurposing dollars for those projects.
So just to make sure, so projects ending in 26 are potentially be able to be negotiated.
Correct. Potentials ending in 26 and or if there's a project that you would like to see on here in a future year so that we're planning for it, that is certainly something that we'd be amenable to adding into the schedule. The only exception to the 26 rule, there's going to be one. Under public property, there's an allocation for building improvements at 444. Those improvements are tied to the acquisition of 444 Westminster, and the total amount of funding is going to be dependent on the amount of bond premium we receive when we close on that bond this year. And so because of the nature of that issuance, those dollars cannot be spent on anything other than improving 444 Westminster. So if there's no additional questions, I will have Director Nielsen or Superintendent Nielsen join me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we can kind of walk through what is proposed in her budget. The spreadsheets are effectively all of the same information. The only difference is we pulled out all of the unfunded things and kind of grouped similar projects together. Parks, you'll see Adrian Hall Skate Park, we've put a bar in there so you can see both of the funding allocations we have for that project. So Superintendent Nielsen.
Superintendent, how are you?
I'm good, how are you? Just so you know, at the event I'm going to is the volunteer appreciation event for parks, so you're all welcome to come. It's over at 8, but that's why I'm rushing out. I wouldn't normally do that.
Where's it at?
It's at the casino.
Oh, wow.
That's why I'm not there, sorry, I'm here.
Yeah, that's okay. That's why I'm not there, so it works out. But thank you for accommodating me.
Of course, thank you.
I think at this point in time, none of these projects are dramatically new other than the items that are being proposed in the $25 million bond. Of most of that money is being dedicated towards India Point Park, which is also being tied to a federal earmark, if I am doing that correct.
As well as
grant funding. I'm not sure if you wanted to, we did a presentation on kind of the status of all of these a month ago, so
Right.
I'm not sure at this point in time if you want to ask questions that you have, or if there's anything specific, I guess, to get into on this list, or?
Committee members, do you guys want to run through it quickly? You want, because I heard it, I wasn't here, but I did watch the Zoom. So I think we could just ask general questions if anyone has any. Councilman Inquil.
Thank you, and Wendy, I think you're like a gift from God, so thank you for everything. And my overall question, just in general, is like, since we only see FY '27, but not like what had been proposed, because these are always 5-year projections, are there things that shifted in your planning between when we saw the 5-year projection last year and then what's being funded now? Does that question make sense?
Well, I think so, because we're working within a budget of 25 million this year, and as much as I would love to use every penny of that for parks, we are only one
Yeah.
department of many, and so it really is sort of triaging which projects are a real priority, haven't received funding before, are going to be used for leveraged funding or to mitigate a more serious situation, which is the case at Parkland. So.
Yes, so I would say in general, Councilman, you would expect these project values to change, so, because we would expect work to be happening, right?
Yeah.
So for example, when we're looking at citywide water parks, there's only 37,000 proposed in fiscal year 2027, whereas we had 449,000 in last year's CIP. That changes because that much work is expected to be done in this fiscal year.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's always a little bit of truing up. What is hard, and I haven't quite figured out the best solution for, and I don't know if there is a best solution for, is these budgets are proposed by our departments and project managers. Really, they were due January 2nd, I want to say, like right after the Christmas holiday, right? So at that point in time, we're making some very big assumptions of the work that will be completed between January and June.
Yeah.
And so there are often times where we think we can complete more or less, and so there will always be adjustments in the next year's CIP to account for, where we may have been off a little bit on our expenditures. So that is also some fluctuations. You'll see, in general, if you see a line item increasing, that is what's happened. Is last year we had assumed that there would be more money spent in the spring of 2025, and it was not expended. However, we want to keep those dollars allocated to that existing project, so we're keeping them there so that we can continue to spend them in future years.
Okay, that's helpful. Yeah, that is really helpful. And my question is also, I'm going to just pick on the first one alphabetically, though I'm not implying anything about this, because I know this is a touchy one, but, for Adrian Hall Skate Park, the whole thing that was proposed was going to be $550, I think. And so just making sure that, we're not planning for less or different, between years without a heads up. But I think
Correct.
we've just...
No, that's exactly what we're trying to do, and that's why we've created these very complicated coding systems so that we can track when things are unfunded, when we're funding them, how we're funding, and we can then group by project titles. It's been a tremendous amount of work, and actually a lot. They're very colorful. Our capital bond handles color codes things, which I'm very supportive of. So, again, it's not perfect. We are still doing our best to try to present a lot of very detailed information to you all so that you understand what this is. But I think it's really important that we have the ability to both budget for dollars that we have in hand and also budget in a way where we're proactively thinking about what our needs are going to be in for the future. I can say that building the list of what we were proposing for this current CIP bond was tremendously easier than it has ever been because we were able to start with something and then pick from there, whereas previous years you're kind of starting with a blank slate and you're trying to figure out where you're going to program from. So I do envision that as we continue to make improvements in the capital budgeting process and we continue to, empower our project managers to have access to data, this process will get even smoother and we'll get even more accurate in how we're doing these things.
No, this is really helpful with all of this, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. Just a quick comment. I think we're going to try to get in the routine of either quarterly or at least more frequently, bringing in CIP and just to kind of go over the updates because we spend a lot of time around this time discussing it and then obviously as counselors, we're in touch with the departments on specific projects, but in terms of being aware of what's going on citywide, I think we need to tighten that up on our end. So just a heads up, I think that's the routine we're going to try to get into going forward.
I certainly welcome that. I think talking about our capital stuff is some of the fun things I get to talk about. So I certainly welcome the opportunity to come in and speak on what these things are.
Awesome. Thank you, Crystal. Councilwoman Peterson.
Thank you. The things that are allotted, the projections of funding for the parks that are in here, are there specific projects already aligned with them? So for example, I'm looking at Fargnoli Park that has a projection on, I believe it's 28 and 29 maybe. Are there specific things that are already, we're looking to target for that park?
Yeah, we have things in mind for that. For instance, at Fargnoli, we know one of the things that we had to value engineer at the projects were the ball fields and the fencing around that. So that was one of the things that we had identified in that. Of course, when we got closer to that time, things may change along that line too. So, and we always involve the community in everything that we do.
Yeah.
So,
we're approaching 10 years on that, and that's how I got my start in all of the things that have to do with city services. So I'm very, very keen and looking forward to what's going to happen over there. But there are new community members in, and they all have a lot of great ideas as they're raising their families here. We had visions when we had our toddlers, and now our toddlers are teenagers. So more opportunities for different ideas and different things to do in the park are things that I've talked with amongst neighbors, not only in my ward, but in the ward next door. So I would love to make sure that we continue the opportunity for the Friends of Fargnoli to kind of thrive and have new input from different community members that are newer to the community now.
absolutely. One of the things that we do is that when we're doing the park improvement project, a lot of what we're doing is also working toward accessibility and making sure things that didn't necessarily happen over the years. And we keep such exquisite data on all of our parks, what pieces break, what things need done, all of that sort of thing. So when we're making these projections, we're including all of that data. And we know that the life cycle of a playground on average is 15 to 20 years, right? So we want to plan ahead for that and have those things. And then it's marrying that with what the community wants as well. So that's where the real artwork is. And why I think it's really beneficial that we have our own design team. Many of whom live in Providence and live in these communities and taking on families to these places as well.
Can I ask you one question?
Of course,
Thank you. The other one thing that I wanted to make sure that I addressed about Fargnoli Park was the, oh my God, I forgot the name of it. The water.
Splash pad?
Splash pad, thank you. I couldn't remember the name. We do have a little bit of a water issue every single time the summertime comes and people try to use the bathrooms, but they can't use the bathrooms because the splash pad is on and the splash pad, then the toilets don't work if you go into the bathroom. So it's kind of a whole thing that's been an ongoing process, but the part that is the most interesting is that the people that are managing the splash pad area are some of our rec youth that are working. And so I'm sure that they have absolutely no idea what to do when it comes to trying to figure out how to do that other than close the door and say you can't use the bathroom here. So we've had neighbors say, hey, there's a problem that we can't use a bathroom that's close by, and the baseball fields, the structure for the Little League that's there where they do a lot of their selling, that has a bathroom, but it's only open during Little League time. So there's a whole thing that is starting to brew with regards to bathrooms during splash pad season. So it's just something that I wanted to put out there while we're talking here to make sure that we address.
I believe we rectified that last summer, what the issue was, but if not, I will certainly loop back and confirm that for you, and if not, then we'll certainly...
I think it's a reoccurring thing because we also had the same issue the year before and the year before that, and they also we thought we had fixed it, but hopefully you might be right.
All right, I will triple
Thank you.
that it's fixed.
Thank you.
And if not, we'll definitely get on it.
And then my last question is with regards to Iola French. I see here that I've driven by, at least I know that we're well in progress, but the description in here really just talks about the softball field, and I want to make sure that what was presented to the community is still very open and active and available. There's a lot we have outside of VZ Street School is where Iola French is, and while VZ Street has their own playground structure, we actually also have 2 or 3 daycares that are local that utilize Iola French as their space to bring their kids. And while it's been down, it's been a little bit tough, but it's feedback that we've gotten from local neighbors that have said, we want to just make sure that all of these things are still in play, because they did attend the meeting to ensure that some of their voices and the things that they wanted were available to them.
Yeah, I will tell you that that is under contract. If it's not under construction already, then it might be tomorrow. It's that close.
Oh, okay.
So I think that was, that contract was just signed. And we are, if you remember with the futsal field, that we were, the budget was such that we were going to do just a natural turf one. But we did some accounting today and found a little more money under the cushions and are going to be able to order a turf field like the ones that we have been putting predominantly in Councilman Vargas's ward. So
Great.
those are really the ones that they are almost like carpet squares.
Yeah.
So when an area gets damaged, for instance, kids, even though they're not supposed to wear cleats, they wear cleats. And so that they get damaged, and so rather than having to redo a futsal field at $400,000, you can just replace a piece of it. I don't believe the playground equipment was in that, but that was not.
No, I don't remember off the top of
Yeah.
my head, but that's probably a up-and-coming project that was.
Yeah. So we have that. I mean, the good thing about it is the whole entire park is master plan, so as funding becomes available, we can peel off pieces of that to do that. But I did spearhead the outdoor classroom space for the school and getting grant funding for that 2 years ago. So we've gotten to know the school and making it a green schoolyard, and really have great affection and appreciation for that. So
It's really well used, so we definitely appreciate that. I think it's a little bit hard when the daycares are there and school is in session, but they're making do.
yeah, it'd be nice to have the stuff delivered.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilwoman Inderwall.
I just also wanted to say one final thing, and I'll totally let you go, Wendy. I was just really excited to see the North Barrel ground still on the list for MY 27, and that it's committed funds. And I think you know how much I love the North Barrel ground, but just so you know, I was at the Summit Neighborhood Association's annual, full big meeting this last week, Monday, I don't know, sometime pretty recently. And a lot of folks were talking about the excellent program at the North Barrel ground. They were encouraging people to go on tours, and people were talking about that they were excited that they knew there were going to be things happening there, because it's like an increasingly loved space. It was already loved, but it's increasingly loved. People are excited about the Gateway project that ACT is doing there. There's just, so the community is very excited that there's going to be investment there, and it's increasingly loved. Big high fives to Annalisa, who does such a great job. But just wanted to say that people are talking about it and are very excited in the neighborhood.
Wonderful. It's really nice to see it being integrated into the neighborhood. And it's just such an incredible asset. This is Alice.
I just want to say.
Councilwoman Graves.
The North Barrier Ground came up in my community meeting last night, and they were talking about the greenhouse and how lovely it was, and they didn't know it was there, and they were walking, it's a walking path and all these other things. So the word's getting out.
North Barrel ground.
Well, I encourage you to sign up for their social media, their
So good.
Instagram, because there's so much good stuff on it. The Moon Talks they do at 8:30. There's one I think on the 1st, but it's on the Parks Facebook page as well, where they do the Museum of Science and Annalisa get together and they talk about the moon and they talk about the cemetery and who's buried in the cemetery and the history of the cemetery and also the history of the natural world at the same time. And it's a phenomenal talk. It's at night, it's in the dark, with flashlights, and it's so much fun. And they're all free. So,
Also, low-key, the best sunset in the city is at North Barrel ground. Just,
It's
you
not
haven't done it.
the community library website?
I don't know if it's on the community library, but it's on Parks social media, but also North Barrel.
North Barrel has
their
its
own.
own social media. It's really good.
It'd be nice if we can get it on there because there's so
Great
many,
idea.
there's so many different groups going to each of the libraries, and I
Yeah,
think it'd be really great.
You're all set, Councilwoman Graves?
I'm sorry.
I got my hands up so she called me.
Oh, Councilwoman Harris.
I was minding my business, call my name, Chair. I just want to say, this is my last budget, that's why I'm joining the chair and the committee to this house started out now in this way. I want to say for the Parks Department, we really appreciate you, Wendy. We appreciate the vision you have. When I met you, I met Wendy, I said, I can't stand these high fences, it looks like ACI. I thought I was working on prison stuff before, right? And it looked like ACI. She felt the same way. She's like, absolutely. We all look the same around the city. All of us. We have equity. And that's what I want to appreciate you because, South Providence, I've always been like, why we left out and East Side is getting everything. It's always been that way. But you showed equity in the city and showed people and our children how important they are. And I just want to say that as I leave, and I want to put it on record. Mr. Chair, is that okay?
Of course.
You called my name.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Wendy, for having a vision and working in our neighborhoods so there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Harris. Any other questions, committee? Members? Just quickly, so there's a couple of projects on here that end in 2-0. Are those expected to be completed in the near future?
Yes, those are expected to wrap up this, in fiscal year 2027, probably this summer. Just trickle into the new year.
Is there, I know we'll get into it as we bring up the other departments, but is there a good amount of projects from that bond still that need to wrap up?
Yes, so if you turn to page, so if you turn to pages 22 and 23, you'll see all of the projects that are still remaining in those bond series. We are vastly expecting to spend almost all of that in fiscal year 2027. One of the bigger holdovers of that bond is the DPW complex, which took a little time to get off the ground, but is moving tremendously quickly under public properties guidance. So yes, that is the other really pressing item I have is like pushing to spend dollars as quickly as possible. And where possible, if we have older dollars for a new project, spend the old money before the new money, just logically speaking, I think that makes sense. So we've been doing a lot of work with with departments and project managers to make sure that, hey, if you've got money from, the 2020 bond for this project, spend that first, even if that may not be how your POs were originally set up, so that we can at least get those dollars moving and out the door, and then we can, keep the existing bond money and spend that once we need to.
Right. So can we quickly just, because there's three that end in 2-0.
Yeah.
150,000, which is okay. But there's a Pleasant Valley Parkway at 150 and the Roger Williams Park Zoo at 150 as well. What are those two projects?
Oh, I'm excited about that. Okay, so the $50,000 is actually buying $920,000 in the federal earmark.
Wow.
And so that project is, that's our match to this project, which is actually a very, very low match. And that is to connect all of the parks in Councilman Taylor's ward along the Mashpog ponds and connecting with Garden House, which is a place that we use for education and outreach and environmental education and stormwater education, and it's where we also run our meals program from, as well as our urban wildlife education programs. There's an outdoor pavilion there, but none of the, you cannot get from one part to the other. The trails are overgrown or they're locked by water. And so this is a project to not only do that, but working with DPW to address the stormwater in that and also provide interpretive trails and education along with that. So that is that project, which is going out to bid for design very, very soon.
Awesome.
So that's all queued up. What was the next one on?
Pleasant Valley Parkway.
Pleasant Valley Parkway. So that was one we started quite a while ago and realized that the bridges actually did not need to be repaired, they needed to be replaced. Not one, but two bridges. And so we have identified the bridges and what they're going to look like, which is really, really exciting, but we needed additional funding from that. So 150 didn't make sense to repair those, so we, in subsequent years, got the additional 500. And so that project is also all queued up to go out to RFP as well for, we believe, an engineering design build on it because we've already identified the bridges, which I think will be really, really dramatic and beautiful over there and really complement the natural area as well as the architecture of the neighborhood. All right, next one.
The zoo.
Oh, the zoo. So that is for the remainder of the balance, I believe, on the education center, which I just took a tour of yesterday with our folks at RIDEM, Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management, that it may have been the penguins also, but I think it's closing out on that one. But one of those two zoo buildings. And of course, the education center is going to be magnificent, and I know that they've invited a lot of you all to go on those tours. And if you haven't, and you want one, let me know.
Yeah, I definitely gotta schedule one of those here soon.
They let you meet the pandas if you go, so the red pandas. So
We can arrange a red panda meeting.
I got to meet the red pandas, and it was the best thing that happened to me in all of 2025. Yeah, didn't you? I'm going to show you the picture of me meeting them. I'm the more excited you've ever seen anyone in your life.
Kyle, do you have any questions for Parks? Kyle Delgado is the project manager for the city council for transparency.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. Sorry, I'm coming back over here.
We talk every day.
We do. I mean, I think, Chairman, I think you touched a lot upon the projects that were in the previous bond, so that was super helpful. Wendy, if you can just talk a little bit, I may have missed this, any projects that were maybe moved up into this bond cycle or projects that were deferred out, and can you just explain like the framework behind the prioritization behind what projects got included in this one versus projects you may have moved out of this bond cycle?
Yeah, should I go through this?
I think so. Kyle, you're talking specifically about the $25 million bond projects that, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's that.
Yeah, so Indian Point Park, the funding in that, to do the entire adaptive shoreline for Indian Point Park is about a $20 million project. We've done about, by the end of this year, we would have done probably about $3.5 million of work there. So this is we are for a federal earmark to do additional sections of Indian Point Park. Again, this is an adaptive shoreline. Indian Point Park is unique that it is everyone's park. It is not just a neighborhood park, it is a destination park, very much like Roger Williams Park is. And it is the only natural shoreline that the city of Providence has. And so it is really important that we preserve that, but we do it in a way that really makes sense aesthetically, but also functionally.
Right.
Yeah. So there's that. Davy Lopes Park, the basketball court there needs some significant work. There were some things that got value engineered out, and we would like to add a water feature there, which I think is really important. There are quite a few water parks within walking distance of that area, but because of the number of seniors in the community and others, a lower intensity water park, and the kids that at the rec center who can't enjoy the pool, that is something that we would like to offer them. So that is that project. Dexter Training Grounds is one of the most popular parks in the city, and the playground has come to sort of the end of its serviceable life, and that is also a place where some sort of water feature has been requested over and over again for years, and we would like to be able to do something akin to that there. Adrian Hall's Skate Park, as you know, we had lots of discussions about lots of dreams and hopes for that park, and in order to do that, we really needed a little additional funding to do that, to make sure that the skateboarders got what they wanted, but also that it was a phenomenal space for all of us. And I can assure you that the work that Sam's been doing on that, one of our lead landscape architects, is just really tremendous. It's going to be a beautiful space, and it's going to be one that I think everybody will be happy for, but it came at a little price. And then the other funding was the other part that the city had committed for the moving of the utilities that was necessary in that park. And Buckland Park is, the entire site needs to be mitigated. So we cannot build or add any playground or do anything if we disturb the soil. So that entire site needs to be mitigated. So we did this when we did the turf field and we did the water park and other improvements. But this also includes going around the community center, the recreation center, even things that are not within the Parks Department. And then with any of the leftover funding that we have, we want to start building a playground there. That, maybe something that we need to phase in, but this is a good start to at least getting that piece done. And hopefully we can, we can manage some of that budget, value engineer that somewhat. And then Riverside is a very similar situation. Riverside is also a capped site. And so when we first budgeted for Riverside, when this funding was put in several years ago, the equipment was at one stage, it's at another now. We're going to have to do another section. Because it was a capped site, this money would be enough to do somewhere else, but it's not with all the permitting and the special considerations that you have to work on when you work on a capped site.
Thank you.
And that's all she wrote.
Thank you, Superintendent. I don't have any further questions. Do any committee members have any?
Thank you.
Wendy, we sincerely appreciate you, and we'll see you in the near future.
Yeah, and if you get out before 8, come find us. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Up next on the agenda is planning. Do you want to move to them, or is there a request of someone else?
Crystal, I'm going to give you that responsibility
Okay,
and power to
wonderful.
dictate
Excellent.
who we hear in what order, because if there's anyone upset, then that will be directed towards you and not me.
Wonderful.
We just trained your
Chairman.
leadership.
Yes, I love this.
In that. Motion to enter Exhibit 8 into the record.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Councilwoman Arrow, second by Councilwoman Graves. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Ayes have it.
Excellent. So the planning budget is on page 112 of your budget books. This includes all of the projects, both funded and unfunded. The vast majority of the projects in here are matches related to larger projects. And I'm sure that Director Mulligan or Principal Planner Chris Martin, look, it's not your title anymore. What are you, Special Director of Special Projects? Thank you, I apologize. Director Martin also is gladly provide any information you have on these projects.
Awesome, thank you. Director Martin, I don't know if we've met, but nice to meet you. Nice to see you. Thank you for having us, or for being before us.
Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Are you gonna kick us off, Crystal, or?
Yes, so again, not a tremendous amount to report on here. The bulk of the projects in this budget are matches for federal grants or grants passed to the state. There is one project proposed for the 2025 or 2027 bond, and that is an alleyway redesign project, which is an exciting concept that the planning department put together. All their projects are well underway, many of which are completed to wrap up in fiscal year 2027. Again, we're here if you have any questions on anything specific, or if you'd like us to walk through any 31 items.
Thank you. There are a few of the line items that are kind of generic, like Complete Streets Grants Match, Safe Streets for All Grants Match, public infrastructure improvements. Can you unpack what some of those projects are? Like with parks, we saw each park, but do we know what's under each of these?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Also nice to see you again. Thanks for being here.
Yeah. Green Complete Streets Match, that is part of our federal funds, matching with our federal funds for Safe Streets and Roads for All grants. We have 2 of those. One of them is a $27 million grant, and the other one is just under $2 million. Both are underway, but the matches are our portion of that.
And do we know what projects fall under that 27 million? Like what streets we're talking about?
Yeah, so the 27 million one, that includes South Water Street, Broadway, Fountain Street, Olneyville Square, traffic improvements.
If you go to page 118, you'll see actually a rendering of all of the streets.
Oh, thank you. Okay. That's what I was looking for. And do you have a sense of like when these are gonna be completed? I get a lot, just to unpack it, I get a ton of questions about South Water Street, like every week. People
Sure.
ask me about that.
For saltwater specifically, we are looking at construction this summer. We're actually very close to ready to go. We're just waiting for World Cup festivities to end, so we're not interfering with the crowds that we're anticipating for the.
And that's all under contract already, like we've approved contracts to do the construction, or?
So yeah, so that's, we will have to go out to bid for that, but that's, we're finalizing permits right now, so that we have our full construction documents in hand, so that we can do the bid for that.
Okay.
What's that timeline, sorry?
Yeah, no, that was the question I
What's the
had.
timeline on that RFP?
So that RFP will go out fairly soon. I think I saw some emails today about CRMC finalizing those permits, and with those in hand, we'll be able to pull that together.
Okay, and then that would still, sorry, can you go
And
through the whole
and
life of the
construction we're looking to start mid to end of July.
Questions?
That was my main question, mostly I wanted to understand like what this was to do with recap. Oh, actually, I do have 2 other questions. What are, can you talk about the decreases we've seen, the change from adopted for the US DOT raise and the Woonsocket River Greenway, like why the change from adopted in the negative? Are those just complete?
So those are
yeah.
projects that are going to be completed.
There's nothing.
Yeah, correct, yeah.
I just want to make sure.
Councilwoman Pearson?
Oh, you moved.
Sorry. And I'm here. I'm Japan. Can you talk a little bit about Trinity Square? It's something that's been out there for a while, but maybe an understanding of like what the status is, where it went from 10 million to 6 million. There's a lot of moving parts that are still kind of unknown. I'd love to be able to know a little bit more if possible.
Yeah, so the reason that's been pushed out so much is because of utility work that's been happening there. It's something that I know that between us and DPW, we're prioritizing to make something happen there, but that was something that just couldn't happen for this year because of the utility work that's happening in that area.
Just to build up on that question, if you allow me, Councilwoman Pearson, and obviously this isn't Councilwoman Harris's ward, so feel free to jump in. From my understanding, this has been planned since
2017.
Thank you. At what point, what leverage does the city have to pressure the utility companies to do the work rather sooner than later? Because 1 or 2 years, I think anyone in this room understands. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, I think is unacceptable. What can you do from your position? What can DPW do? Obviously, they can answer that question.
Yeah, I mean, working with our colleagues at DPW, we try to, we do our best to let them know what our priorities are, what projects are happening and when, and so we let them know when that's happening, and we can do that only so much, but then, they do end up coming in and doing work. So I don't know if we as a planning department have as much leverage, but, we communicate with them as much as possible to let them know that this is the work that we're trying to do, and to coordinate with any kind of work that they need to do in there. We can't stop emergency work that might have to happen, but.
So when the communication is happening with them, are they aware of the money that's tied to the projects? Like there's timelines on these bonds, so I'm sure that's part of the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, and that's something that we should absolutely be making clearer to them if it's not already clear to them.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yeah, of course.
Do we ever loop in the utilities regulator, the Public Utilities Commission, to let them know about these lags? Because they're supposed to be regulating and making sure that yes, they have to have access to their infrastructure, but if it's impeding city services, that seems like something their regulators should be aware of. And I don't know if David's done that or others.
Yeah, I haven't been part of that kind of conversation. I'm not sure if my other colleagues in other departments have, but.
Because 1 or 2 years seems like whatevs, but 9 years is totally unacceptable. I don't know, I won't make you put on the spot, Craig, but. I am looking at you for later.
And just to be clear, Director, we're not trying to put any blame on you. We want to be a part of any, conversations, any solutions for this not to continue to happen and to not happen into any other projects, especially of this magnitude where it impacts a lot of people. Councilman Harris, did you want to touch on this? I know it's in your ward and
Absolutely.
questions about it?
Yeah, absolutely. This project actually started under former Mayor Alonso, who awarded $10 million to Trinity Square infrastructure. What they wanted to do was sort of move, if you guys are in South Providence, there's an island that's near Broad and Elwood split. And they wanted to sort of move the island a little to make it more traffic convenient, right?
Yeah.
So I guess they was able to convince the mayor to give that award. But that was not something that I sort of was monitoring because that was a direct to them. So I had no idea for about 3 years that this existed. And during that period of time, funding got spent from $10 million, and right now we're looking at like $6 million something. And in tracking it, we understood that, let me clear, it's 425,000 went to a master plan for Trinity Square. Do you know anything about that?
I would have to get back to you on that. I'm not exactly sure what you're referring to.
Okay. And
How much
it
was
went
that?
425,000. And if you do find out the master plan and what was that for and who ordered that, we don't know where that came from. And the second funding was someone gave $250,000 to Southside Culture Center, and we don't know for what. What was it?
Oh, I actually can tell you.
Oh, you
because I
do?
looked at that
Okay.
payment.
Okay.
Southside Cultural Center had done some sidewalk improvements around their facility, and the city reimbursed them for those improvements since they were in the Trinity Square area.
Okay, thank you. Moving forward with this, we know that the planning department, you don't mind me?
The floor is
As we're moving forward, we don't mind working within the planning department, but the money was actually awarded within the community. We would like to figure out how to have a community engagement process, maybe more like a participatory budgeting process, where this $6 million is actually decided on by the neighbors. We understand that Trinity Square is part of the neighborhood, but it's a lot of businesses and, people who have ownership of other things affiliated with it more so than neighbors. And we want to make sure that this process is really done where neighbors are deciding on projects moving forward. So we're hoping that we can work with the planning department and figure that out.
It's a wonderful idea.
You think so?
I do. I think that this is really something that's been committed to this community, and we need to give them something in exchange for this.
Right.
I will say that the city is still committed to doing the sidewalk improvements when we can, and so if you look at DPW's budget, there is an unfunded allocation of this balance to complete the sidewalks if and when we're able to do that work. We don't necessarily want to tie up more dollars because we don't want to be 10 years down the road and still unable to do this. But I can tell you in all of our conversations, like spending these dollars in a way that community can benefit from is certainly a priority. So I can't speak on behalf of the planning department and how they would do that engagement, because that's certainly way outside of my wheelhouse. I can say that there is a commitment to use these dollars to improve that area of the city specifically in a meaningful way in the near future.
And Mr. Barton, you're new, right?
I'm new in this role. I've been in the planning department for a little over 4 years.
But new in this role.
Yeah.
And I actually, from the administration, was told to wait till you take your position to have a bigger conversation around how do we do just what you're saying, making sure that the community understand that this money can be spent in their neighborhoods and advance. And Mr. Chair, if you don't mind with the stuff that's going on with the water and all the other things. I got to give credit to our property person, Kyle, comes up, because Kyle already have tried to have this conversation, just like the way you asked us this year. How do we not keep holding this up, this project up, and you know, just getting broader and broader, and then other things are being spent, you know, in other areas without the community even knowing. So I don't know whether you want to ask Kyle exactly what happened with those conversations, but we did try to have that conversation.
Yeah, we can, I don't know, Kyle, if you want to jump in.
I think I'll just come up to the table. Up to you.
Yeah, please.
Thank you, Chairman and Councilwoman. Just to echo the sentiments from the Councilwoman and the committee here, obviously we know the backstory of the utilities and all the, you know, the lies that's been happening here. We've had conversations with the administration that was really productive, and I do believe that they are committed to doing a purposeful project in this community. One conversation that we did have though was having a community engagement, setting it up and getting an idea of what the community needs are. I understand that, you know, it's a lot of money just to say, like, what do you want, right? Maybe we come up with a few viable and impactful ideas that we present and have some type of participatory budgeting process there. But we were told just to hold off until we can have somebody assigned to this and go out there and have that engagement. So do we feel like the planning department is in a position now to go out there and work with the council office and have a community engagement effort with the councilwoman to kind of set this up?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we are here for. That's our kind of what we're assigned to do for the city. So yeah, that's absolutely something we can take on.
That'd be great. We can have our office coordinate, you know, and schedule something. It would be great to kind of connect internally, talk about some viable, you know, scopes that would be good to present. I don't want to just go out there and not have any guardrails on and just kind of have it be all over the place. So maybe we connect internally first and then coordinate on some external communications then.
Thank you, Councilwoman Graves. Before you go, I just have a clarifying question. Just for full clarity, what are we waiting on the utility companies to do exactly?
Right.
I believe they have roadway repairs that they need to make.
Yeah, Providence Water was in, they gave their lead water mains, and Rail and Energy has been in there replacing their gas mains as well. We issued permits to them in 2024, which means that they got that plan probably late 22, got their contracts together in 23 and started in 24. They've been working simultaneously, side by side, to expedite that work. We're showing that Providence Water is nearing completion of their in-ground work. Rail and Energy still has some work to complete. So hopefully that by the end of this year, all that in-ground is going to go.
One thing you'll be seeing coming up with Providence Water is looking at areas where they don't overlap with gas for restoration purposes, now that they're mostly complete with all of their underground work. So they're going to be putting a plan together to show us of what roads they want to come in and restore this year. So once I get that, I will share that with you.
Thank you. So I guess just further clarify, I guess what's the type of work that we're looking at for Trinity Square, and how is it impacted by road work?
Previously it was sidewalks.
Sidewalks?
Yeah, that was the previous work, and I believe Crystal indicated that it's going to live in a different part of the budget now, just to rectify that. Now we're trying to open it up to the community to see what they would want to be invested there. So previously it was sidewalk work.
Yeah, well.
Some folks don't mind.
No,
some folks have talked about porta johns and stuff like that, but those things are very, you know, I know it's a part of infrastructure, but you have to be very, very careful which ones to really invest in. So we want to make sure that people understand what they're asking for, what's required of it, you know. You know, whether it's you know, how that's going to be maintained, how it's going to be cleaned, you know, all those things have to be a conversation. So engagement, a community engagement would actually help people think about exactly what they're asking for. So that's why we wanted to make sure that after waiting all this time and being promised all this time, it's still in the CRP, and getting to a point where now it's 6 million, how much more is gonna be spent without the community having any say? You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, thank you.
Councilman Graves?
No, I just wanted to know, what was the numbers that you gave for?
For the beginning? Oh, for the beginning, for the spending?
Yes.
Okay, just give me a second. I had to write it down. Let me write it down. 425,000
On a survey.
yeah, for a master, some kind of Trinity Square master plan. I don't know what that is, what's in it. I've never seen that. And 250,000 for Southside Culture Center, which is explained to
So
us.
$3 million was spent on that.
Yeah, on 250.
No, you said, how much did you say?
250 for the windows at Southside Culture Center.
How much was it, 2 million or what?
250.
250.
So what happened to the rest of the money? That's a big discrepancy.
No, 425 for the master plan, so that's 425,000. 250,000 as well.
If I'm not
Yes.
mistaken, I believe some of the money was moved towards the shovel-ready project in other areas of the city, I think when I was with Tucker River.
So,
Correct.
I
This was
believe.
prior to my overseeing this project, but what I've been told in passing is that there was some sort of understood agreement that funding would come from here to go to the, I might pronounce it wrong, Munoskatucket.
I always mess that up.
That was amazing.
Rivershed project.
how much was
I
that?
think that was almost 2
I
million.
think it was a considerable amount of money. I want to say it was 2 or 2.5 million. I don't have the exact reconciliation, Councilwoman, but I do remember like pulling documents to try to get this data for you. And I do remember that the bulk of the spending was redirected, which is why it's really critical for us to have this process where we are publicly, like annually looking at these budgets and ensuring that that's not happening. If I'm being candid, there was quite a bit of that when I picked up this process of people reallocating money from one project to another without documenting it in a codified way. And so that is a lot of what we're trying to rectify here.
Say that again.
The
For that work that was, and that, I think that's the point that was made by many community members, is that this money is being moved and they have no voice in it, although they were the ones that advocated for it. So, I think that is where we stop everything and try to make it fair and balanced. Just like Hal said, we have been having these conversations to be able to do that. Where the community build that trust around, city and what's going on.
Yeah, I think that's very important, certainly. And I really agree with Director Delgado's suggestion of coming up with a couple of viable options and then presenting those options. So I think that really is going to be the homework over the next few months, is to kind of figure out what is possible there. If we know we can't do sidewalks now, we'll have to do those later, that's okay, but what else can we be doing?
Colin and I will be working with you. We're very excited about this,
Yeah, of course, Councilman Graves.
I think there needs to be something written that
Where the
no
funding-
more money should be going in anywhere else except for in her area. If that money was allocated for that community, that's where that money should go and that's where it should stay. Because those are the people that fought for that, and they're the people that still really need that money. We got to stop doing that because that's why people don't trust us. They fight for it and then it goes somewhere else. I'm not saying that the other project wasn't a good thing, it's just that we just can't keep doing that. So is there something that we need to put in writing or whatever so that we can say this money is to only go to this project or something in that group wants?
For this specific or as part of the capital improvement ordinance?
Yes, for the rest of this money, the $6,640,000.
From my perspective, this allocation is considered an appropriation, and
For the
so
bond.
there is no legal ability to change it. So, from my perspective, they could not amend this amount in an amount greater than $5,000 without re-presenting the CIP and codifying the reappropriation of those dollars.
No, I'm not saying send it somewhere else. I'm just saying that it should, if it was allocated for this was allocated for what?
Oh, yes. So what I'm saying is, if, for example, we wanted to reallocate something, there is no legal mechanism to do that in excess of $5,000. So if, once we appropriate this CIP, this $6 million is earmarked for this project, we cannot reappropriate anything under the charter. We do not have the authority to reappropriate those dollars.
Unless you guys come back here.
Unless we come back here and formally request to amend the appropriation.
Okay, because I was gonna say, because it's already done.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
okay.
and that is again part of the problem, right? Is we
Yes.
didn't have this presented annually. We didn't have quarterly meetings. We didn't have reports. We quite frankly didn't have it in a database. So it's been a lot of building systems to prevent exactly what happened here and to ensure
Well, I
that we
appreciate
can
you.
defend this.
I appreciate you, Anna, and I appreciate you saying it's part of the thing, because this should not happen.
No.
It really shouldn't happen.
Yeah, Councilman Harris, or?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, thank you so much for definitely opening up the questions around this and all the committee members who've been paying attention to this. I would like, Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, to see where those dollars did go for, just for the heck of it. This is my final term, and the last thing I want to see down the road is under Councilwoman Harris, $4 million disappeared from CIP, you never know. People get the stories wrong. And so if we could have it on record, you started out telling us a little what you've been able to find, but I just read you some things that I think Trinity Square may have thought happened to it. And if it's not a master plan, then we need to say there is no such thing as a master plan. If there is a master plan, we need to know what it is, and and I think we should be able to see it.
I can work with the planning department to try to identify that master plan. I know that description came exactly from the PO and solicitation that was used to pay the vendor for that work. I would find it extremely hard to believe that we didn't get any product out of that expenditure. I personally would not have seen it yet, but what I can do is take that reconciliation we have prepared for you and try to find some backup documents if you think that would be helpful.
I appreciate it.
Of course.
And Cal will work with you with that.
Yeah,
please.
anytime.
Chairman, if I may ask one more question? This is more for Craig and Brian. Just for clarification, the utility companies, we're expecting them both to be out of there by this year? Or is there like...
Water is mostly finished, gas is still working, and it'll probably go into spring a little bit next year, I think. But then they should be out and we should be able to get it.
So within about a year, we should have both of them out?
So, yeah, approximately.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. Committee members, any other questions for planning? Director and director?
That was good.
Director Joe, do you want to say anything? Haven't heard from you today.
We're breaking in the new guy.
Throw him under the bus.
We've had some staffing shortfalls, and we're still not up to our design capacity, but we do have some new talent in the office that is going to be a great benefit to the department. We're actually interviewing with the hope that we might be able to hire in the next fiscal year, and we've been very impressed by the talent out there that very much want to work for the city of Providence. They think this is a great opportunity, it's a great city, it's a great place to live and work, and they are impressed by what they see happening here in the city in all aspects. So that's a great positive, and Councilwoman Harris, I think we got to get through a little bulge of work right now that's on our desk to start to take advantage of this construction season, but can certainly reconvene on these other initiatives and get them moving the pipeline so that we can efficiently coordinate with the conclusion of the underground utility work and then immediately roll into these improvements. The greatest sin would be to do improvements and then have them dug up by somebody coming right behind us. And I think it's good to note that some of that work that was in that scope has probably been initiated and completed by development entities, including Omni and the aforementioned reimbursement that have done it under their own volition. So it's not that nothing has happened, but that it is substantially delayed until we await the utility infrastructure to be completed, and then we can roll right in.
Unfortunately, I've been hearing that for a long time. I'm on the way out the door and I'm hearing the same thing. It's like, yeah.
I remember when I first arrived, we walked through the community,
Right.
and I'm frustrated that we're in this situation.
Yeah, I would say Councilman Harris, thank you so much. I know we've talked about it before, and Kyle has mentioned it to me. But by you know, coming here and at least making everyone in this room aware, I think if delay keeps happening, it would be unacceptable on all of us. You know, when issues like this magnitude happen in our individual wards, it's important for all of us to be aware of it so we can keep advocating. And I think you definitely have 3 counselors here that are committed to keep finding solutions and to get this work done. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for all this.
Thank you. Councilman Harris, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, guys.
We'll see you guys soon.
Thank you, guys.
Yes, and that's not a threat.
Sorry, John, you're up. Come on, Ben. You guys ready?
Okay.
Administration.
Oh, here we come, yes.
It's all every department. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, bye. Good night.
Of course. Before we start, the Madam Clerk is going to swear Anthony in. Not to point you out, but brought to my attention you weren't here at the beginning.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name and your title for the record.
Anthony Allen, Deputy Director for Public Property.
Excellent. So the full.
I'm sorry, before you start, I just need to enter Exhibit 9 into the record.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Inouye, second by Councilwoman Graves. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? The ayes have it. Thank you. We're ready, Crystal. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So I'm joined today by Director John Arsenani, Deputy Director Anthony Alves, and Senior Project Manager Ben Lobaugh. They've been doing a tremendous amount of work in the city over the past couple of years. I don't know about you, but I've been really impressed with what I've seen in City Hall over the past few years. It's nothing like the prior 10 years I've been in the city of Providence. Additionally, there's quite a bit of money in the proposed bond that is earmarked for this department. Most of it is general to facility improvements, but there are some specific projects that are very exciting. As you can see, they've been really well underway in spending their dollars. We've got a lot of movement happening, and I'm very confident that they really will need money next year if we don't issue a new bond. Many of our facilities are in states of disrepair. There's years of neglect that we're trying to recoup for. And this team has worked really, really hard to not only identify those issues, but try to build a strategic plan on mitigating them. I don't know if the team or the directors have anything to add, but...
I think the director might have a few words to add.
It's, again, I've only been here a couple of years now, and it seems like we're doing 20 years of catch-up, and
Right.
it's just amazing that we are getting a lot done, and it's support the council, and we want to keep going.
Yeah, we appreciate you. I mean, definitely for guests of City Hall, the elevator, the bathrooms, those are very visible improvements, and I know they sincerely appreciate it, in addition to us, of course, appreciating all the work your department does. Committee members, any specific questions? The only question I had really is what's the timeline on the PVES ADA playground?
That's Pleasant Valley Elementary School ADA playground. I believe that construction RFP's happened.
Yeah, it's in the process now. It should be completed by July. June and July.
Yeah, so we kept the money, again, this is one of our estimates, right, so the RFP went out, we awarded it, we're not sure if it'll complete or June and July, we're putting some of the funding in July. If we expend all of those funds in June, we will not be spending more than what was originally allocated.
Awesome. Kyle, question?
Yeah, thank you. Chairman, I do want to give credit to this department. I work really well with Ben, Anthony, John. I think they're tremendously responsive and do a lot of great work in the city, the whole department, the project managers. So I do want to give them all a shout out. One of the more important projects I think are on here is the City Hall roof and the different bonding that we've done here. Can you just catch us up on where we are on this roof? What's going on?
Sure, right. So designs are complete. They're now with the State Historic Preservation Society for final approval. And then we go out to bid. So our hope is to award a contract to a general contractor in, a month or two. Get started putting up scaffolding on City Hall and should be complete within 12 months. So we are anticipating a completion of phase 1 in summer 2027. Now, phase 1 is going to be the flat membrane roof on top as well as the decorative architectural elements, those slate shingles and the copper metal detailing, all be in phase 1.
Is that deposit, is that over the archives?
Yes. So it
Thank
should
you.
solve the majority of the water infiltration that's coming from the roof.
Thank
We're
you, we need
experiencing
that.
as well.
And a portion of the quarter deeds on both sides.
Wonderful.
I'm sorry.
No, floor is yours. Are you all set, Councilman? What's up? What's the timeline on the other elevator over here?
We're anticipating completion in July. The elevator company is now inside assembling the cab for the new elevator.
Awesome. Any other questions for members? Councilwoman Harris, and then Kyle, we'll go back to you. Thank you.
I am really interested in the public safety garage. That has been a waste. I mean, the first year, it seemed like it was, building on profit, people were using it. I paid my funds to get in it. And now it's just, so what is plans for that? Is it to fix it and generate profit? I don't know.
That's a good question. It's right now it's mainly used for employees.
No, but we go there too, we ride in.
I understand that. We used to have a parking lot across the street that we were able to use. We lost that parking lot. At that point, all the firemen and policemen actually moved into the garage at that time because there's no other place to park.
Okay.
Our goal is to find out how many exactly we need for employees themselves. At that point, maybe the first, maybe the second floor, depending how we're going to go up to be used for the public at that point. We'd be paid parking at that point. But right now, it's just the investigation process to find out how we can utilize that garage.
I mean, it's 1 year after it's sort of put there, it's like gone.
And we're also looking at other opportunities, to see how much it's going to cost to move an area of grass to make extra parking for employees to park, to again alleviate the parking in that garage itself.
As far as issues with the garage, we are going to be replacing the roof that's on top of the elevators. We're going to be doing some elevator work. We replaced all the lighting that goes around. And we are going to very soon start looking at any repairs for sealant to keep the water from coming down, and any and all potential cracks and whatnot that we need to fix. So that'll all be coming up.
Glad you're fixing the elevator, I use that a lot, so. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Of course. Kyle?
Oh, thank you, Chairman. Another big project that I see here, there's $24 million that's for the DPW complex. What are we looking to do there? Is that addition to what's already been done, another phase of?
So that's all, will be considered phase 1 of the new DPW complex. It includes constructing a whole new building that's going to be both 9 garage maintenance bays as well as new crew quarters for the highway sewer maintenance departments that currently operate out of the existing garage. So that's one piece of it, is that brand new building. It also includes repairs for that existing garage,
where they park all the vehicles. We just completed a roof replacement over a portion of it. It also included the purchase of the 2 new buildings just at the top of the hill on Chapman Street, where now DPW's admin folks have relocated, as well as some renovations that are needed to those buildings, such as making an accessible entrance, right, with an ADA ramp, some security improvements, some material lift, and that sort of thing. So it's sort of a holistic campus improvement for DPW, but the largest piece is that new building construction, which they're currently in the ground. We're pouring concrete foundations now, anticipate to be completed in May of next year, 2027.
That's all, Chuck. Awesome, thank you. Any other questions? I think we're all set. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
We appreciate your.
Thank you.
See you soon. Well, we'll go first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Run right through.
Sorry, guys. The baby wins. The baby wins, so you guys have to wait a little bit.
Yeah, yesterday I didn't get it.
I don't think I just, but I don't think I was recording a lot of stuff.
Yeah, they get overtired.
I'm like, see, how we doing? Like, quickly ran it.
How old?
He's 9 months tomorrow.
Oh, no, the baby in her mouth.
He's here somewhere.
Before we continue, I just need entertain a motion to enter Exhibit 10 into the record.
Second.
So moved by Councilwoman Graves, second by Councilwoman Interwa. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Excellent, okay. I was a little remiss in not remembering that Director Dela Cruz has a newborn baby at home, so I should have earlier. So my apologies.
He's gonna be 9 months tomorrow.
That's why I don't want that responsibility.
I'll take it all. But we're here to talk about something that's really, really exciting and a first for Providence and maybe definitely in the state, if I'm getting that right.
Definitely in the state.
Definitely in the state. It's the establishment of a new green revolving fund. Yes, so this fund will be considered part of our CIP process. There's an initial seed funding of $3 million that's been allocated to this project. At this point in time, the bulk of that money has been allocated to a line item for safe harbor payments. Right now, we're in a really critical time period, which I'm sure our Director of Energy can really elaborate on, where we are trying to get as many projects as we viably can earmarked for IRA reimbursement credit process. We are under an assumption that if we get these projects begun or in the wraps and underway by June 30th of this fiscal year, we will still be eligible under the safe harbor provisions. So one of the things that the Sustainability and I Department have been working on really for, 2 years? Yeah, probably 2 or more years, is like the moment these IRA credits became available under the prior administration, our external audit partners reached out to me and said, hey, this is something Providence should be doing. I immediately looped in sustainability, and we've been having quarterly meetings to try to figure out what Providence can do to monetize these credits. Thus far, we have already received, we haven't actually received it yet from the IRS, but we have filed one tax return, which has entitled us to $79,000 in rebates for some EVs that were purchased under Deputy Director Proft. Again, we're still waiting, and that tax return is a couple years old, so we're working with the IRS to try to figure out how long this takes, but one of the things we're gonna have to factor into the decisions on what projects ultimately move forward before June 30th are, what does the reimbursement timeline look like, what other cash flows do we have, and kind of just projecting out cash flows for the project, just cash flows on funds coming back into the revolving funds. I've got a phenomenal team here that knows all about this stuff much more than I do, so I'm sure they would like to talk a little bit more about what this initiative is. They've done a phenomenal job of writing up a write-up of this green revolving fund, so I would encourage you to read through their narratives in the book. It has a lot of details, it has some kind of forecasts on what reimbursements could look like, and it has some really great information and visuals for you all.
Awesome, thank you. Director, how are you?
Good, how are you, Chair?
Pretty good.
Yeah, so this is really exciting. We started this conversation last week before Councilwoman Anderwa's Environmental Resiliency Committee, where we were able to talk to you more about like the context of why we created the Green Revolving Fund. But Crystal can also work with sustainability. She's like well versed in all these things, and she did a wonderful job explaining that because we spent a lot of time together, especially David Verdurl and Crystal spent a lot of time looking at these tax incentives. But all this tied to the Green Revolving Fund is tied to the energy efficiency and carbon neutral ordinance. So really ensuring that we have a funding mechanism that's dedicated for how we're actually going to make all of our buildings energy efficient and carbon neutral by 2040. So the ordinance was signed 2 years ago. Since then, no more new fossil fuel hookups in our buildings. And what we found working with our peers across departments, including public property, DPW and parks, is that we really need dedicated stream of funding. And then what we also found is that wouldn't it be great if we could like capture the savings, specifically in this case from incentive and rebates, and apply them to the next round of projects. So I think this is something really big for the city, and the sponsor of the legislation, Councilwoman Anderwan, knows that and understands it. She's such a champion of this work. I think this is going to really create longevity for how we set plans and for also how we fund them and implement them. And this is all in the spirit of the climate justice plan. And also within the Green Revolving Fund, we mentioned the climate justice plan because it's really the anchor for everything we do, including the energy efficiency and carbon neutral ordinance, and really keeping in mind, right, the equity challenges that we face across our city, and really thinking about how do we use our community center spaces not only as a space where like our community feels good, right, being in, and also essential to their health in terms of like indoor air quality, but also David can talk more about this as assets. Like they can actually generate electric bill savings for us and revenue. And that is something that our department thinks about every day very strategically, like how do we save the city more money and also bring in more revenue. So really the Green Revolving Fund is just the next iteration of this. It codifies that. And also complementary to that, we launched the decarbonization roadmap. I think that is David's third child now, the decarbonization roadmap. Literally, I mean, since the day that the ordinance was signed, really thinking about how do we set the strategic vision and framework for how we're going to do a comprehensive assessment of all of our buildings. And David achieved that with Power Options, who's the energy nonprofit consortium we work with to develop the roadmap, and it assessed 130 municipal buildings. So again, we know what we have to do, and the Green Revolving Fund now gives us a seat at the CIP table and an ability to do that. And I will, any questions? And if there's anything that I missed, David.
You guys all set? So thank you, that was wonderful, and I think we have another conversation tomorrow.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I'm just one.
Floor is yours.
Thank you, my friend and Chairman. Chairman Miguel. One, I'm just so excited about this, and you guys, you already presented for a committee last week, but because not all the members were there, just like this team is stunningly competent. If you haven't read the decarbonization roadmap yet, and I've still haven't gotten mine signed by David, so I need to do that, but because I'm good treasurer for always, but it is just an amazing piece of work, and I'm just so impressed by this department and the foresight of like understanding like how we need to keep reinvesting so we can achieve these goals. And I was just gonna say, I'm excited the committee, after your presentation, realized how urgent it was to make sure that the enabling ordinance also passed. And so we're excited to hear that ordinance tomorrow, and committee starts on Friday afternoon. It's like the worst, but it was like with all these meetings, it's the only time we could get it in, and we knew it was important, so we're sneaking it in Friday 5. And so we can get it moving along, so you guys can get the process going. But thank you for all you do.
Awesome, thank you.
And thank you to the committee members tomorrow to coming to a 5 p.m. Friday meeting. I will try and bring some snacks. 4:30. 4:30. Different presentation first. I'll tell you about it. But yeah, they'll be at 5.
I suggested Saturdays for meetings and I got pushed back, so.
It wasn't for me.
I don't mind Fridays, yeah, it's all good.
I mean, if we do Saturdays, I'll just bring my baby.
Yeah.
Oh, we should start doing Saturdays.
I mean, you should just bring your baby anytime.
I could do that too.
Yeah, Counselor Roy has brought his child to last meetings. It makes meetings so much better.
She did a little gavel just for the record. Save us could do the same.
Inspire the next civic leaders. I personally don't have any further questions. I think it was a great presentation. Do any committee members or Councilman Harris, Kyle, do you guys have anything else for sustainability?
This is amazing. I remember when you just first took your position and the excitement that you brought to the table, just knowing that it's still there and the accomplishment and all the things you've been able to achieve since being able to take that position, you and your team. So I am so excited to hear how we are just involved right here in the city, you know, taking on the challenge of environmental concerns and everything around it. So thank you. Thank you and your team. Appreciate you. This is my last term, so that's why the chair is giving me like room just to thank everybody. Yeah, you know, like.
If you were coming
appreciate
back,
you.
Say a lot of room. You're a powerful leader for this council. Appreciate you.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you too. Even though sitting beside me is the biggest cheerleader and poster child, whatever. You know, so there's really not too much I can say.
I'm just so excited.
No. So I really do appreciate it, and I did get a chance to read through it, and it's really interesting. And thank you.
Oh, thank you all. We appreciate always your encouragement and support. It means a lot to us.
Looks like Kyle has one question.
Priscilla and David, I had a chance to, talk about this, but I just wanted to bring this up in committee. It seems like these projects are living in the CIP now. Are there plans to kind of graduate this and have it be its own mature green revolving fund separate from the CIP? And have it without dependence on the CIP dollars?
So it's not currently dependent on the CIP dollars, right? So there's initial seed funding that is coming from the CIP that is going into this fund, but from an accounting standpoint, it is its own fund. It's not shared. It's not a shared account with the traditional CIP. Traditional CIP is in Fund 390. This is in Fund 354, if I'm remembering it correctly. Oh, yeah, right here, Fund 354. So even if you see on the coding systems, you'll see that the traditional things funded by buying dollars start in 390. This is starting in 354. So there's no conflation or mixing of dollars.
Okay.
However, the capital improvement plan is a plan that should be contemplating all funding sources, and this is a funding source for capital, so that's why it's included in the plan.
Fair enough. Thank you. And just the last one. These are all solar projects, correct?
No, so there's a combination. The majority of the funding in year one will be allocated to solar projects because of the tax credit that's about to start sunsetting in June, but there is some energy efficiency in there, and there is also some building electrification upgrades to prepare for EVs.
Awesome.
You can see
Great
which
question.
with the code here. So DSEU on the yellow is electrification, SA is solar, EE is energy efficiency.
Excuse me, could you repeat that?
Yeah.
Because you're kind of mumbling.
I was just saying on this yellow page,
Okay.
the codes at the front of each item tell you if it's building electrification, that's DSEU, SA is solar, and EE is energy efficiency.
Oh, good to know.
Yeah,
Okay.
those are the three main categories that the decarbonization plan focuses on.
Okay.
Efficiency, electrification, and then renewables or solar.
We appreciate that, it's very helpful.
Also the phrase urgent efficiency makes me really excited.
It's always urgent, it always comes to us.
I'm so excited.
I think we're all set, we appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
I like, after they presented it last Monday, I'm not even kidding, I told you, I cried on the way home, I was just like, oh, how happy, I was literally, I'm gonna try again, I'm gonna stop. I like, was the shot on my face.
That's wonderful.
It is.
Almost to the
Thank you. Thank you so
I'm just so happy, Councilwoman.
Look how he's receiving it. Right now. Best friends, this could be something we can work with.
I'll continue, enter exhibit 11, moved by Councilwoman Anawa, second by Councilwoman Peterson, all those in favor? Any nays? Ayes have it. We can continue these conversations after.
Yes, we
The
can.
floor is yours, guys.
Thank you very much. So I'm joined today by Director Trish Quinfay, and two of my favorite civil engineers, Craig Hochman and Brian Anderson.
Yay.
Brian and I regularly have 8:30 a.m. phone calls, so it's always a pleasant surprise when I'm getting ready to start my day. I can say, what I can say is, just like public property, I have seen a tremendous amount of work happen by these teams. The work that Brian and Craig do to track their projects, to track their spend, how they know these things just off the top of their head, is really incredible. The fact that their engineers has made help like building coding systems so much easier. I mean, the minute we started this, Bryant was calling me, trying to figure out how we're gonna number things and sequence things and how he can track things. I'm actually building him his own custom report so he can keep track of this. And I think that's just a lot of words to say that, like, giving our project managers data, access to data, and the flexibility to do their jobs in real time without having to rely on asking someone for information is resulting in us being more efficient and spending dollars better. And so I'm really happy to see that. There's not a tremendous variety of projects in here, but I can tell you, as I was building the books, I started with DPW because they're in alphabetical order, and it was like kind of sad because it's just like we have so many roads and there's so much repair and we have $10 million to fix it all. Or, you know, our sewers are in major disrepair. Honestly, they're much better off than a horrifying presentation I saw about 5 years ago. But again, there's so much need that is happening in this department, and these are not oftentimes glamorous, like, you know, and this is, knock on parks. Parks are beautiful and they're lovely and we see them, and you have ribbon cuttings and all of that, but there's no ribbon cutting for putting a new road down.
You can start those.
We could, I don't know. Maybe we should, because I do think that this is a lot of unsung work, and it's really critical work, and it's work that impacts everybody every single day, regardless of what part of the city you're in. And so, you know, I give these fellas and the rest of the team a tremendous amount of recognition for the amount of work that they do and the amount of dedication that they put into this work.
Awesome, thank you. Director, do you have anything to add? Awesome. Councilwoman Anawa?
Thank you. Promise not to cry during this presentation like I just did. There we go. I have a few questions. I also first have a comment. Well, one, you guys are great, which is not the comment I was going to make, but it's a comment I should make because you're awesome. And the second comment is to the ribbon cuttings. I wonder if there's some way we can think creatively to celebrate the work that you do. Like, thinking in my neighborhood, when we fixed the, and this was with DOT, so it wasn't with you guys, but when we fixed the amount of time we got to cross at the Rochambeau and North Main Street intersection, I didn't plan this, but the ERB did an impromptu parade to celebrate that they pressed the button and they could cross while playing, and then they waited and pressed the button and then crossed while playing, and it was just like a we fix something in government parade, and like maybe I don't know, let's just get creative, because you guys deserve to be celebrated too, not just parks. And that was really, really nice to be able to celebrate something as silly as, or as important, but not normally celebrated as like a crosswalk timing. And I didn't plan that, so I can just love on the fact that they did it. So I would love to think about how to celebrate you guys better, is a thinking cap I'll put on. The second question I have for the roads, are these just repavements? Because like the little line I drew is like traffic calming is such a small amount of money compared to other pieces. But as we're repaving roads, are there things we can or should be doing to make sure that we're building in the Vision Zero like ethos into like any road work we do? Or like, is traffic calming part of any of those road repavements, or are these just strict like repavements? Either is a great answer, I just want to know. I mean, I would prefer the Vision Zero answer, but like, this isn't a trick question.
Yeah, they are primarily repavements. If there are initiatives out of planning or through our traffic engineering division, we are incorporating those when possible. A big portion of our, or about 20-25% of our road budget is also road maintenance. It's much cheaper to maintain a road that's in good condition than that's in poor condition. So when we can resurface a road for $65 a square yard or maintain it for $2 to $5 a square yard, we're going to offer that $2 to $5 a square yard.
Yeah.
We've done a lot of good work since 2013 and paved a lot of miles of road. And in past CIP budgets, one of my proudest moments is saying we've maintained everything that we've done since 2012. We've lapsed a little bit, but we do have that program coming up with some of the remaining 2025 dollars that we planned out and implemented this year.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Are you on side comment?
I think those are my questions for right now.
All right, let's go back. Councilwoman Peterson?
Thank you. I have everything that she said and everything that Crystal said. Kudos. You guys are awesome. Most of the time I feel like we come to you with all the problems that we have and never actually give you all of the thanks, because it's a lot of work that you guys, and it takes a long time, and when it gets done, I had a neighbor when there was a piece of her sidewalk that got done and it was taken care of kind of towards the end, and she actually kind of rejoiced as big as you did. So I see it, and I don't think that we give it back to you guys, so I just wanted to make sure that we said something. I do have a quick question with regards to this, and forgive me if I'm just not picking it up, it's getting kind of late. I'm looking specifically at your sidewalks, and there's two line items. One of them has the $5 million, and then for FY 2028, it drops a little bit, but then there's $3 million. Would you be able, in a different line item, would you be able to tell me what the differentiation between that is?
It's the funding sources. So the one that ends in 25 is for the bond that is currently issued. We have those dollars in hand. The $3 million that has the code that ends in 26 is the proposed bond. So part of the reason we're proposing that bond is if we do not, we will run out of sidewalk money in fiscal year 2028.
Okay, so where in this, and if it's not presented in this, then I guess where would it be placed? The proposal for the sidewalks on the east side, does it show on any of this, or is it just a completely separate?
The Mile of History projects?
Yeah.
Those are not included in this. I could pull them in and show them they're reported in a different funding source as well. Okay. But I would be happy to pull that in for the final CIP if you'd like, and amortize that over the 5-year period.
I'd like to. Part of the reason why I wanted to make sure that I talked about it is because I think there were so many of us that had concern over bonding out to the taxpayer for such a small project. And I think that many of us were, while we understand the need, it also becomes an equity issue. And one of the things that I wanted to see and have a conversation about here was to actually discuss how we could give parity to some of these projects specifically related to sidewalks in other neighborhoods, to be able to quantify what we're asking our taxpayers to take on just for a small project in 3 wards. How do we make it a little bit more equal and fair to the rest of the wards to be able to sustain more projects? And I think what I'd like to ask, if there's a possibility to ask, is to be able to find a way to shift some stuff to be able to quantify some of that. And I know that you've mentioned that a lot of these things are already very much allocated for and need to be kind of stay exactly where they are, but I do also believe that it's really important to make sure that we're advocating for our neighbors in a way to be able to create that opportunity. So I just wanted to make sure that we started that conversation.
Of course, go ahead.
Yeah, it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, Budget Officer Lindberg, but the things with the 25 afterward are already contracted, but then it sounds like the one with the 26, which is the $3 million for sidewalks, maybe that's where we figure out like how we, I'm just saying out loud, yes, and like, it seems like that's the one where there's that wiggle and we can work on that with you? Okay.
Yes, so the one that ends in 26 is where we would have some opportunities for reallocation. To the best of my knowledge, the road and sidewalk contracts are like blanket contracts for road and sidewalk work with certain vendors, so I do think like they're not necessarily tied to specific roads or wards per se, it's just a contract for sidewalk work, and then this team works on a plan, an actionable plan of what will happen in that fiscal year. But yes, I would think if there's some sort of proposition to change how we're budgeting for roads and sidewalks, that would be the correct line item to adjust.
Good to know.
I just want to make sure there's actionable ways to talk about it.
You're so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Just to add to this conversation, I think we need to try to increase that number. I think just bonding, I know it's not just, but in reality, 3 million doesn't go too far. For example, I know on the mile history walk, there's other work besides sidewalk, but you know that alone was 5.56 million for that specific street, and to have only 3 million for future sidewalk projects across the city, I don't think that's very equitable in the lens of others. So I'm not sure if that's a conversation for now or
So I think one of the things we have to look at is our debt capacity, right? So the 25 million was kind of picked because it was something that felt affordable this year. It was also done intentionally because we do have, again, like, quite frankly, we have 2017 bond money I'm spending by June 30th, right? So it feels, right now it's this balance of weighing when we should be bonding versus what cash we have on hand at this point in time. You know, I think we need to be more strategic about how we're borrowing going forward. Historically, it's been like every once in a while we feel like we have capacity in our operating budget to take out a bond, so we bond for as much as we can, but we don't necessarily know what we're bonding for. We're just putting $100 million out there because we can afford it, and then we decide what we're going to spend at that point in time. But you know, the unfortunate truth is, if I'm going to bond for $100 million in July and I want to actually spend that in 5 years, I need to have that all buttoned up now. Like, I need to have known 2 years ago what I wanted to do. I need to figure out how I was going to do that. I need to figure out how I was going to issue my RFPs. And so, while I agree that $3 million is not sufficient to equitably distribute sidewalks throughout the city, I also don't know that right now we should be borrowing more than the $25 million, because I don't know that we can actually spend more than the, you know, what are we at now? $8 million we have on hand in a 5-year period in time. Right now, we're projecting that will last us 2 years. But what if I get to next year at this point, in between Mile of History and other things that come up, we've only spent $2 million. And I'm already holding $10 million for a future year. So again, part of this process is being more participatory and being more nimble in how we're borrowing. We're looking at that right now on the school construction projects, right? I mean, one of the things I'm constantly doing is forecasting when is the cash flow going to be needed to build this school, because I don't want to borrow money in July if I don't actually need it until June. And so it's been tricky and it's been certainly complicated, and we've been working on our advisors, but I would definitely caution against assuming that just because there's $3 million in this bond that there's some sort of desire to not equitably distribute sidewalks. These projects were prioritized in what could be done and certainly could be done in 5 years in time.
Thank you, Crystal. I appreciate that, and I wasn't suggesting increasing the 25. What I was saying, maybe exploring that 25 and seeing if we need to increase it specifically for sidewalks. And my only follow-up question is, in terms of not being able to potentially do more, is that a internal capacity? Is that a vendor challenge? I know probably all of the above, but I mean, what can we do to build more capacity internally if that's what is
needed.
Yeah, I think you've hit on a couple of those points. Utility coordination is also quite a bear. Providence Water is doing great work with their lead service replacement program. They have half of the buildings in the city. To balance that, our work and Rhode Island Energy, who are the big players here, it's a logistical challenge. And sometimes we need to stack those a year, 2 years out, sometimes 3 years. We've got about $5 million on the street this year, another $5 million to follow next year, and that's the most we've ever done. So we have been ramping up as we've been staffing up also. Crawl, walk, run, we're kind of going from walk to run. Just how fast can we run, we'll find out this year and next year.
Awesome. Councilwoman Peterson and then Councilwoman Graves.
Actually, I already went through.
No, you go ahead.
Oh.
I think you just, yeah.
All right. I feel like we constantly have the same question.
Yes.
To your point, Crystal, thank you very much for kind of explaining that, and I have to say that I agree. My follow-up question to what you had said was, how often are we auditing in our wards to be able to address immediate needs or growing needs? Because our sidewalk deficiencies on our main roads are pretty much, they're being addressed, right? But on our side streets, it's become more of an issue that, combined with the elevation of the trees, making the huge gaps, the roots, are expanding and causing these issues with the sidewalks. All of those things they're not things that they've happened over many years, but they're still things that linger on that don't necessarily have, they certainly don't have a date of expiration, but they certainly are, the requests are, they're long in process. So I kind of just want to understand, how are we auditing to see what our needs are in an effort to support the constituent of the taxpayer?
Yeah, we're open to that input every time we reprogram here. The approach we've taken now has been in place since about 2017. I think it's been pretty successful, impactful, and visible to the community. One of the feedbacks we've heard over those 10 years is it's not getting into the community where our constituents are living, right? We are getting to those main streets. In some areas, we've solved the main street problem, and we are into the neighborhoods. It's not exactly even ward to ward as far as main streets and residential. That's a question I think we have to continue having and figure out a path forward together.
Yeah, I think part of this conversation is really, it really does surround equity, and being able to show our neighbors that actually all of this is being equally represented in every ward. And that's oftentimes what we have, the feedback that we're getting is, well, either you're not advocating strongly enough, or we're just not being recognized. And that's part of the uphill battle that we as counselors often have. And I want to make sure that we continue to find ways to be able to formalize what we're trying to do, because I think it's extremely important to highlight that these are conversations that I think I've been here every year asking pretty much the same question. I know that in what I can contribute to my sidewalk projects and projects in general often go to being able to help the smaller areas or the more side streets. But truthfully, we also know that those dollars are stretched so thin, and the projects seem to be getting more expensive and even bigger at times, right? Depending on who has to be involved. So I just want to make sure that that's something that we're addressing. This is, equity, I think, is a highlight of everything that we're, at least in this particular council, we're trying to make sure that we maintain and sustain. But the equity goes, and it's a variation across so many different departments and services that we have in the city. So I just want to make sure that we talk about it and figure out a way to get it done.
Thank you, Councilwoman Graves.
Speaking of that, you guys are finally on Camden Avenue in my ward. Camden Avenue was the top on my list when I first came into this. I put my money in. I had a crew of 9 people going out listing all these streets by, which ones were the worst, the most dangerous, and then, and gradually going down. And this is my 4th year And Camden Avenue is just not being addressed. So going along with what she said, now, Smith Street has been done numerous times, since I've been there. And every year, you hear the same complaints from us, every single year. The main streets are done. And was told, well, it has to be near a school. Camden Avenue was near a school. Providence, Harry Kazarian is a school. So, but it's just now getting there. And now they're saying to me, well, you have to choose between which ones you want, because yes, all those are bad, but we can't do them all. So which ones do you want? Now, I'm like, wait a minute. If I tell you to do 117 and not 119 and it's sitting side by side, you're going to start a war. I can see these people coming into my community meeting ready to hang me, because 117 got done and 119 and we put in at the same time. Now these people have been on the list. Well, we no longer have that unless you did a new list. But they've been on the list for over a decade, both of them. So we're still talking the same thing. So I think when you said, my question is, I want you to clarify what is the reason why we can't get more money. It's because we do know where the streets that need to be done. I think every last one of us in all the different wards know the streets that have to be done, all the side streets. We can point them all out to you. So it's not where it is it you just don't have the capacity because of staff to do it? I don't understand. So what is it?
Yeah, we're trying to plan our improvements around where we theorize and where we identify the most amount of pedestrians walking. We've heard Orange Street in the past. We know that has a high pedestrian population. That's where we focused improvements on this round. Camden Ave is also going to see some improvements, especially on the Kazarian side, where they proposed moving the sidewalk over to make room for drop-offs. So for us to be there at this time, I'm not sure it's quite the time.
No, they're doing the school. We're not worried about this. I didn't even put that down there. Let the school take care of that. The sidewalks that I talked about was further up the street and further down the street. So
we can note that, and in this next $3 million, if this comes to fruition,
correct me if I'm wrong, I think those are the ones that they got in contact with me about. So Camden Avenue is already on your list. That's what I'm saying. I'm applauding. Once you do that,
It might be net funded.
yeah.
So
Because I put money in every single year. I put money in for sidewalks.
Net for CDBG.
Yeah. So
one of the things we see as well that you just noted is when you get particularly off and you're not doing a straight corridor high pedestrian thing, you get into the neighborhoods. You go to fix one repair and there's another one right next to it. And where there's not sufficient budget, once you start one or two repairs, then everyone around, the person that's in front of their home is happy about that. The people outside of that don't have a repair in front that might be needed aren't exactly thrilled that theirs couldn't be done. And another challenge we face is, the corridors where you're going from a starting point, you're able to complete repairs and say the whole block. Whereas if you do a repair in a neighborhood that's a needed repair, so you deal with a tree root issue. From a perspective of going from one end of the block to the other block, you may still have 5 or 6 other repairs that are needed. So as you get in a neighborhood that has some unique challenges that are different than the higher pedestrian corridors.
that's why you talk to them. They already know. We're only going after the ones that are really bad, where somebody's going to either trip over or they got to go into the streets to walk. Those are the first ones. Those are the ones we're worried about. If yours is because, okay, it looks a little crumbly, you're on the list, but you're on the bottom of the list. If we talk to the people, they
We don't tell them that.
If you talk to them, they understand. Talk to them and be blunt. I would like for my street to be done, but I know mine is not. on that top of that list. So they all understand that. So they come to the meeting, they talk to me, and I let them know, and they know where they are. But they've known that they were at the top of the list forever, and they still didn't get it done. So I think that's where the problem is. I think the ones are saying, now, look, you told me I was top priority. You told me that, people are tripping and falling, blah, 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 blah. We're going to get to you first, but nothing's been done. So I think we really need to either tell them, we're going to keep on doing the main doorways, and that's it, or whatever. But we need to put some money in. I agree with our chair, that we need to put more money in, and if we're going to talk about doing all the the other 12 wards, because we're talking about putting how much money into for other three, we definitely need to at least match that or more, and this is ridiculous. But that's my opinion. I've been fighting for sidewalks in my community for a long time, because I've seen people trip and fall. I've seen people in the middle of the street because they can't push a carriage or a wheelchair or whatever, and it's just an accident or a death waiting to happen, because some of these streets, like I said, Elm Street is terrible. Kansas Street is bad because people fly down Kansas Street, and it's a one-way. There's a playground down there, there's a park down there, that the wrecks down there, and the school, and they still fly down that street. But people have to walk in the street because they can't walk on the sidewalk.
Yeah, I think our current plan, both forms, depending on how far the funding goes in, Candace, and both of those you helped identify to us through various meetings throughout the past.
Yes.
So, for any of the council members, anything to reach out to us if there's a street or a corridor that's not necessarily the main street that you'd like us to look at and evaluate, because in a few, in this current bond we're spending now, there's been a few cases where councils have identified streets that are in a higher need and have a number of repairs that make sense for us to go down instead of doing maybe the busier street. And
like I said, if you see one that's just cosmetic, walk right by it. And if they have a problem with it, tell them come see me. End of the conversation. Thank you.
Very good. Councilwoman Peterson?
2 questions. Obviously, everything is way more expensive right now.
Yes.
Way more expensive. Do we have the capacity to execute under these numbers, everything that we're still trying to do, or are we looking at projecting not being able to do all of the amount of projects that we're considering?
As far as we've done the sidewalks or roads?
Everything in general,
Yes.
because I'm sure you guys the
Materials.
expenses are increased everywhere, so.
It does pare back the total
Yeah,
amount of roads we can pave or sidewalks and
Right.
repair, and we just have to try to work as best we can to get the best prices possible under the circumstances, and be selective and try to pick the roads or sidewalks that have the most need, so that we're utilizing dollars to the best that we can.
Yeah, our annual budget requests also build in inflationary figures, so we're estimating 3 to 4%, 5% on certain issues or on certain line items also, better reflected in the budget book, not necessarily the handout we have here today.
Yeah.
So you can see that we're building in to more or less do the same that we're doing annually. And our hope again is that we continue to ramp up and increase what we're able to do.
thank you. How quickly do you make that determination about what projects you have to kind of backlog?
So for sidewalks, the way we do that is we have sort of, if you see our plans, it's priority 1 area, which is where we hope we can get to the full extent.
Yeah.
And then priority 2, but because the sidewalks are so dynamically different in different places, where you might run into 2 blocks that have a lot of repairs and a block that they're almost scattered. It's hard for us to predict exactly where we're going to end, so we work with our engineers that come out and look to find out, so we know how far we can go. We work until the money is expended, and then plan on starting up at that point if it makes sense once we receive additional funding.
Okay. And you notify our project management team when that happens, right? I just want to make sure that if we're anticipating something and it's not going to happen, we are able to notify our neighbors.
And you'll see a lot of the stuff we send out, we might say evaluation area versus, because we don't want to mislead people, we want people to see that as, this is sort of the long-term plan, we're going to do as much of it as we can with the funding we have under the current cost. But we're trying not to have people see that quickly and say, oh, they're going to go from here to here, because we're not,
Yeah, we're trying to stretch the dollar at every opportunity. We're not making cosmetic repairs. We're making functional, structural repairs.
I appreciate that. My last question, and I promise I'm done. We talk about utility coordination because that seems to be a hindrance across the board for every project, not only DPW related, but in our schools and as our constructions are happening, it's a consistent theme. First of all, who does that in DPW? And then second, how does it work? And then when it's taking a long time, who is responsible of saying, hey, we're backlogged as a result of your not doing your part of the job?
Yeah, so it's primarily Bryant these days. Sorry, Bryant.
Bless you.
I have there for a while. But we've kind of switched our tone lately. We're noticing, I can think of Apple's Ave, where a project has been going on now for 5 years. It was initially a water project, then it was a gas project, and then there was another water project coming in with lead services. To the point where we said, we can't take this anymore. If you want to get your lead services in, it's got to be by the state, or it's not going to happen. Right? The residents are upset. We need to just move on.
It's happening now, right?
It's happening in quite a few areas. Yeah, and it's ongoing now on Apple's Ave. That's right.
It's my drive home, so I'm very familiar.
Right, these critical utilities are very dynamic in their needs, though, just like we are with sewers. You could have a priority today, which is trumped by a priority on the other side of the city, which is actively leaking or undermining, or you've got a sinkhole because a sewer failed. So it's a dynamic process. However, we've approached the utilities with a bit more urgency to either do their work or say, you know what, we're going to come back in 5 years. Or we're going to come back at a later time. With Rhode Island Energy, they've recently gone through some hearings with the Public Utilities Commission where their capital plan is now drastically evolving. They will be next up on our list to force or say, we defer. Right? Either get it done or we defer work. Also with the passage of the utility ordinance through City Council, we are drafting regulations actively in the hope that everyone gets on the same page from day one, including our internal staff too, right? We've got sewer, highway needs, traffic needs. What can we get done in a coordinated fashion? And we're trying to hold people to a completion date. It just cannot keep going out indefinitely. So that'll all be coming soon. We look forward to implementing that. And I hope we see progress.
I have one more question.
Go ahead, Councilman Graves.
What is going on with Bath Street? It's blocked, it's not blocked. It's blocked, it's not blocked. It was supposed to be last year. They came to my community meeting and said, oh, it's going to be a 3 to 4, maybe 6 week project. And it was like a 4-week project. And then they took the little sign down. And then 3 weeks later, it was back up again for about 6. So it's blocked again. Could you please tell me what is going on? Do I have to avoid that? I don't want to be riding by and the thing blows up. Just tell me.
So I can tell you some of the work that we did on Bath Street last year was in response to a sinkhole and a sewer failure. This is probably one of the most critical we've ever dealt with because it's right next to a Providence water pump station. 36-inch sewer main, which is very large, which pumps up to all the high elevations in the city. Bath Street is very constrained and very narrow, so right next to that big water main, we've got the local water main, big gas service, and the local gas service, and we are threading the needle in between. Sometimes when utilities do work, we undermine the other utilities. So we do our sewer work, it causes undermining of a gas system and a water system to where they now have to come in and do work. So that is some of what you've been seeing. We coordinate that the best we can. Again, they're now reactive to the work that we've had to do. So they're coming to Bath Street and they have to leave something else, right? So everything kind of falls, and that's the dynamic process we just discussed.
Yes, I have.
Logistically challenging, but there was very minimal interruption to sewer, gas, and water there, maybe to the traveling public. But we avoided catastrophe, which, I mean, that was the #1 win there. No disruption of critical water services to hospitals.
Yes.
And gas service remained intact as well.
Okay. Well, you know, hasn't little old lady been out there screaming and howling at you? Because she's come to the meeting screaming and howling.
I think we get one of those on every street. I'm sure I am, Philly.
I said, look, I don't know. I'll go over there with you and let you yell and do some more, but I really don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I can take it right out to Bath Street tomorrow and I can get back to you with anything I see out of the ordinary.
Yes, please send something to me so I can talk to her at the next meeting, because she was at yesterday's meeting. Still very irate. Thank you.
Committee members, any other questions? Kyle, you have anything?
No.
The last question I have is specific to retaining walls. So I'm obviously pretty familiar with Boyd Going Street. If you could just give a quick update on that. And then retaining walls is something I thought was more like privately, owned, but what I'm hearing more frequently is that the city does own a good amount of retaining walls. And where is that addressed in your capital improvement budget?
Yeah, so we did our first major retaining wall project on Collier Street. That's off of Smithfield Ave a couple of years ago. That was a result of a complaint from the neighboring business saying, hey, your wall is encroaching, it looks like it's about to fall, and they were right. We got out there in time though. We did have to close Collier Street for the time being, but that was a very successful project. Brian did a great job there in the process of designing 2 wall fixes. He said, hey, I think our third and with it, a 4th wall?
I'll have to give kudos to our contractor. They found some efficiencies in the way they were installing it and able to free up some of the allocated funds to replace a 3rd wall that was determined to be failing. It was a smaller wall, but once they removed the vegetation things, they noticed that it was failing, and actually I can't take credit for that. Credit to the contractors we had that work here that identified that, were able to work with us to complete that 3rd wall within budget.
You listen to your contractors though. I don't think we always, The city does, but
Yeah, it's a good partnership. It's a local contractor in the city. That worked out great. The Bodine Street retaining wall, we are at $50,000. Yep. So right now we have $50,000, and that's to get us started on design, Mr. Chairman. That is to iron down a concept and start full design of how we're going to treat Bodine Street. Our working concept, Brian and I, is to narrow Bodine Street. The one-way concept seems to be working efficient, or at least expensive, most efficient fix for Bodine Street. For us to chase a retaining wall all the way down that slope, just to maintain that width, I think is a bit ill-conceived. With everything we do, we're trying to stretch the dollar and get the best product so we can use dollars elsewhere in the city for our many needs.
So is that funded in the new?
So I think the expectation at this point in time is that the RFP for that will pull out this year, depending on like this current fiscal year, which is why the funding is not in 2027. But this is again one of these things where if the RFP drags a little bit, or
That's for the 50,000.
Yeah. So that RFP has begun. It is in draft form.
What's the delay on that? I feel like that's kind of been a little slow. Because I'm asking, because I met you guys, or one of you guys out there probably like 2.5 years ago at this point.
Yeah, it's not super urgent. It's not in an active state of continued failure. What we've done to mitigate out there has been working for, it's going to be about 3 years right now. So it's not as critical as like a sewer break. We have some bridge issues that were our higher priority. It's just slipped in priority based with all the other nature we have going on right now.
Awesome. And then what's like the general need citywide on city-owned retaining walls? Is it a concern? Is it?
I think we're always concerned about our infrastructure. I don't think we're fully understanding where our retaining walls are in all cases.
Right.
Retaining walls are one of the trickiest things we deal with. A lot we see between state and city property lines, a lot we see between private and public right of way. And deciphering whose exactly it is always a challenge. It's not something that's historically been cataloged by Public Works. I think over time it's just traveled through different departments. It's kind of like an asset without a home. We just don't know because it really hasn't always been with Public Works. There's some component that Public Properties has there as well. We're finding out about retaining wall issues as they're reported to us, and that's typically how we're going about retaining wall issues.
So for like the foreseeable future, do you think that's something Public Works will be more responsible in terms of like organizing and being aware of that work, or?
Yeah, we're always involved, and we're supporting department for any department who needs our services. And we're helping our Public Properties Department with an RFP for a different retaining wall design. I think we've helped our Planning Department on certain initiatives they've had that require some structural earth retention. But yeah, it's out there like any other asset, just not the most critical at this time.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions. I don't think committee members have any more questions, so we can move on to our support.
That's it.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I'm not attacking you guys. Thank you very much.
So,
The final act. Oh, no pun intended. Look at that.
Just for arms. I'm sorry, we didn't arm wrestle.
The best. The last.
Hey.
Hey, Chair, I'm like, hopefully it's one of your last, though.
We'll see. Wow, so should be quick. Thank you, Director.
Oh, nice.
At this time, I will entertain a motion to enter Exhibit 12 into the record. So moved by Councilman Peterson, second by Councilman Graves. All those in favor? Aye. All those in opposition? The ayes have it.
Chair, Mr. Wilson Jr. joined us a little bit late. Do you want to swear some in?
Of course, thank you.
Please swear under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do, I will.
And please state your name and your title. for the record.
Joe Wilson Jr., Director of the Department of Art, Culture, and Tourism.
So this department is slightly different in that they are also proposing an amendment to the ordinance which dictates landmark public art. I will let the director elaborate a little bit more on what they're looking to do here. What I can say from a financial perspective, it's really refreshing to have some fresh eyes look at these landmark art monies. When I started building the CIP a couple of years ago and looking at this, I was very alarmed at the status of the 2020 landmark art funds, and so one of the charges I had given to these folks is, figure out how to spend this money so that we can actually put these dollars to use. And I think they took the past year, to really creatively think about how can they use these art dollars to make our community better. And I think that they've got a really exciting idea that will benefit really not just us, but also some cultural facilities in the city.
Awesome, thank you, Crystal. Is the director gonna?
Absolutely. First of all, I'm sorry I was late. For over 10 years, I have been the auctioneer at the UCAP Gala and have helped them raise money, and they asked me a year in advance, and I could not tell them no or change that date, so that was tonight.
You were not late.
No, you
could have came 5 minutes ago, you would have been right on time.
But thank you so much. We're really excited about, as you all know, the original legislation to establish the 1% of public art was passed in 1980. And we didn't receive our first allocation of CIP money until 2020 bond. And we learned a lot from those resources and the challenges of putting art in public space, and really thrilled about where we are right now. As I mentioned 2 nights ago, with the exciting proposals that we received for the Gateways project. We got a chance to send those to the mayor. They're really beautiful and going to be really great signature pieces of public art here in the city of Providence. But as I spoke about even 2 nights ago, that the way that we're thinking about investing in cultural infrastructure has changed. How we're thinking about festivals as a part of cultural infrastructure, how we're sort of reimagining what infrastructure is in our cities, apart from pipes and buildings, it's people. But one thing that, without getting too personal, I'm from New Orleans originally, Louisiana, and I come from a city that actually owns cultural infrastructure. Gallier Hall, the Municipal Auditorium, and we don't have those kinds of assets here in the city of Providence. So I think it's important that we think about using CIP dollars to be able to invest in our cultural infrastructure. And that's held by many of our 501c3s and nonprofits. And so the ordinance change that we're proposing in the department is that we have plenty of money for statues and murals. We've done a lot of that work over the past, 6 years here in the city of Providence. And so many of our cultural institutions continue to struggle from, what was a transformative moment in 2008 with the housing crisis, and then moving into COVID, and to now. That what would it mean for us to use capital improvement project money to invest in our cultural infrastructure? And so this change, the ordinance, would allow for not only, right now it states that we can only spend money on public works of art. And we're proposing opening up this ordinance so that it also allows us to provide cultural infrastructure grants. We think this will be transformative for the city, transformative for our cultural institutions. We have so many, we have institutions who are really busting at the seams in terms of their needs to expand and grow. And a lot of those ARPA dollars that were spent on cultural infrastructure was transformative for many of our cultural institutions. And so we want to be able to use these CIP dollars to not only support public works of art, but to be able to also establish a new grant-making program here in the city of Providence that would go toward a cultural infrastructure. And so we're thrilled about the possibility here, whether it be the money that we're granted in our general fund to support grants, which is a really important program that we have to support artists and 501c3s. We think this will be a natural expansion of our grant-making capacity to be able to support cultural infrastructure.
That's awesome. Thank you for that, Doctor. Is something like this being done elsewhere? Is that where do we?
Well, RISCA has done this, so it's happening
statewide
on the state level. But we know there's a density of cultural infrastructure here in the city of Providence, and literally we're hearing every single day that I think about. I don't want to call anybody out because I always forget that I'm in a public meeting and I get a story written up about me on our WRPI or something at WRI. So I don't want to.
It was a lovely picture of you two.
She looked fierce. I was sweating like a pig. But there are organizations, and you look at different cultural districts or cultural districts in the city of Providence, whether they be the Valley Arts District or Olneyville, that are really need support. And not because they're unsuccessful, but because they actually need us to help them interrogate, finding bigger spaces, or, many of our cultural organizations are, following in an example of what's happening around the country, of how do they maximize their resources around joining forces, and embedding themselves in certain neighborhoods. And so, again, without getting into too much specifics about that, because I'm on many boards, and a lot of this is confidential, we have creative institutions who are really thinking in wonderful ways about how do they band together, how do they create new models of how our 501c3s, cultural institutions, can join forces to strengthen their capacity moving forward. And this money would help them do that. And again, my job in this department is really to think and strategize around. There's been a lot of attention paid to downtown over the course of the 20 years that I've been here. But there are, and while there aren't the kinds of cultural district designations that I see because my department is part of the Global Cultural Districts Network, and we have these kinds of conversations with cultural districts around the world. While we don't have that kind of legislation, we have an entertainment district designation, I think, on the state level here. But many of these, like I'm using it, the Valley Arts District, they see themselves as a cultural district. And so they're looking for this kind of infrastructural support to be able to support organizations that want to make homes in these neighborhoods. And these are very successful organizations that want to do that.
That's awesome. Thank you. Councilwoman Peterson?
This is phenomenal. So always my hats off to you because you do such a wonderful job of really highlighting the essence of what Providence is, and you've done you've picked up the ball and run with it this entire time.
Thank you.
What would it take for us to be able to create those districts, as you mentioned, here? We clearly have them within our own neighborhoods, and we know what each neighborhood represents and the historical background behind so many of them. What would it take for us to be able to do something like that here?
Legislation and ordinance outlining, you know, what these districts do is that tax incentives around organizations that are cultural organizations embedding themselves in neighborhoods, protecting existing infrastructure within those neighborhoods. So it's about developing strategies in these areas, and that would be through city ordinance and working with the state. Tax incentives for cultural organizations to locate themselves within certain areas of the city, and protections on the cultural infrastructure that already exists in these areas. I mean, you all have heard, there was a term that was an old term many, many years ago about place making. But now we have changed our understanding of that to place keeping, because culture already exists in these neighborhoods. So it's not about bringing in culture or reshaping neighborhoods to be a cultural district. It's about investing in what currently exists in these sites, excavating them, platforming them. And so, you know, again, doubling down on what kinds of economic incentives can we provide for those kinds of placekeeping initiatives. And so it would be a city and state, it would have to work on a city and state level. And of course, there are models that we can, there are resources that we can bring to bear in helping us figure this out. Again, the department is part of a global network of districts that exist around the planet. You know, I have been to conferences in LA, the district that exists with the Walt Disney Opera Center and along the Marte Perform, along those areas. You know, I've seen these districts in Greece completely transform areas in that city. I've seen this in Montreal and brought back many of those practices. There's an area called the Court de Spectacle. For example, many of the installations that are built by that group, we brought back for the Lumina projects in District Park. And they have ready-made areas in the city, like ready-made festival areas where they've done the work that we've been trying to do in Kennedy Plaza for a long time, and taking out curbs, putting in lighting infrastructure. You know, you walk in sections of the city and you're always hearing music, where they actually embrace people activating public space. These things exist around the globe. It's just a matter of us, you know, getting folks in a room and deciding that activating public space is important, and establishing these kinds of cultural districts are important, and providing incentives for those that own property, those that want to come in and invest in property, centering arts and cultural initiatives, and in the same way that you would want to build, you know, the infrastructure to get a wind farm or support X amount of industries in treating arts and culture as a sector and as industry that needs to be invested in, and that we want to woo and attract into not only downtown but into our neighborhoods.
I see this as a phenomenal segue or support to economic mobility and development in the city. So I would love to be able to circle back, I hate that expression, get together with you again and see how we can mobilize on something like this. I think it's a really great idea.
And again, right now there is legislation which establishes entertainment districts,
right,
but not cultural districts.
Understood.
And so I'm happy to dig in with you all in the council to figure out how we can get that ball moving forward.
Perfect, thank you.
Awesome, thank you, Councilwoman Peterson. Councilwoman Graves?
I hear everything that you're saying. We know that it's been done before, so many places. I agree with you. Before we can do anything else, we really need to get the taxes, the zoning, and all that together, because what has been the downfall for many of those places that have existed is that someone comes along and they want whatever property or whatever area there is, they'll do that eminent domain stuff. They will come and they will push you out, and that culture out, and this gentrification, as we want to say. So I would like to work on this, but like I said, I've been on this rodeo trip numerous times, and I've seen it happen. I've seen the beauty in it, but I've always seen how somebody comes along and always pushes us out. Just pushes it out. I mean, look at Harlem. That was a cultural thing. That's exactly what that was, and it thrived for years. And then it got pushed out. I mean, the same thing happening everywhere. Philadelphia, Virginia, North Carolina. Anyway, we can go to probably any state and point out areas where it happened before and it thrived and then it died. So I agree. I think we need to have the foundation. We know what tears it apart. So once we know this, we need to have the foundation set up so that it can't be taken away for the next person that comes along and say, oh, I like that property, they gotta go.
And I moved here from Harlem, and so I know, I was living in New York as a working actor. I know the area well. I lived on 128th and St. Nicholas Terrace, and I watched it firsthand between 2000 and 2005 change. But I think the one thing I'll say about this is also, really treating, and this is the work that we've been doing with the Cultural Heritage Tourism work, really thinking about how we celebrate certain neighborhoods in the city of Providence, and we overregulate and criminalize other neighborhoods in the city of Providence. And so what we're working to do in our department, whether it be through our permitting process or the community building work that we do, is that Federal Hill should be as celebrated as Broad Street. And really thinking about helping our small businesses and cultural stakeholders mobilize themselves and create that same kind of advocacy work for themselves, that whether you were talking about, Benefit Street and Mile of History or, Federal Hill, they do a great job of really advocating for those businesses. And so we work every single day as a department to empower other cultural corridors in this sector to know that they have rights, they have power, they have value, and really giving them the tools by, making connections with other folk who have done a great job of mobilizing on behalf of their neighborhoods to say that, we deserve to have a voice too. And we work really hard with, whether it be with our permitting process and with our city service process. I just want to give a shout out, even in thinking about these questions around safety and security and sound and the whole 9 yards, that we have a public safety team that works with us with permitting that is truly a department of yes. They work extremely hard to make sure that all of our cultural corridors, the benefits of activation and permitting and licensing and support, and I think these are all of the tools that build toward the greater goal of, as I've said at many Global Cultural District Network conferences, which I've had the chance to present at, I presented at one about PPD Fest, is that we are the only city that is a part of this global network, because we see ourselves as a city, as a cultural district, comprised of these individual neighborhoods that make up what we love about Providence. And so I think there's a lot of, I'm excited about this conversation and excited about the support that you all can potentially give us in terms of, creating synergy, to think more broadly about how we look at Providence, how we look at these interlocking, walkable cultural corridors, and more importantly, make sure that there's equity in these spaces, and that all of our neighborhoods are valued and celebrated, and being as worthy of being platformed as a destination as another, but also making sure that the folks who live in these neighborhoods feel a sense of pride and ownership, and knowing that they hold a valuable piece of what is the cultural landscape of the city.
I agree. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you, Director. I do not have anything else. Committee members, Kyle, you're all set? Awesome. Thank you so much, Director, for coming and pushing this idea. I think it's very transformative idea, like you mentioned, something that I think most of us, if not all of us, will get behind. I'm definitely very supportive of it. Seems like committee members are also, so we'll continue the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, congratulations. You're doing a great job.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Congratulations.
I have a wonderful team, great committee members, so they make this job very easy. So thank you.
Aw, thanks, buddy.
Shout out to the clerk's office.
Yes. Thank you.
Crystal, before I take a motion, I just wanted to tell you, thank you so much for all your work, not only around the budget, but CIP. We've had these discussions for 4 years now, and it seems to be getting a little more clear and a little more efficient in terms of process. I would like to think, we're 5-10 years from now, and whoever's in these positions won't even have to think twice about what happened to X, Y, and Z 5 years ago. They'll go to a database and know exactly where it went, when it went. So I really appreciate that. Like I said, this committee is definitely committed to supporting this process and improving it to get to a better place. But I just wanted to state that here on the record that I'm super, super grateful to your work and your whole department's work. Director Sarah here. We really appreciate you guys.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. It's been a pleasure working together for the past 4 years. I'm very excited about this year's budget. I'm someone by nature who just can't handle things staying the status quo. So I can envision this will change every year slightly just because it can always be better and we always want to be better. So I'm looking forward to a happy budget season with you all.
Awesome, thank you. That being said, I will take a motion to continue items 1 through 6.
So moved. Second.
So moved by Councilwoman Gray, second by Councilwoman Peterson. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Any nays? The ayes have it. At this time, I'll take a motion to adjourn. So moved by Councilwoman Peterson, second by Councilwoman Gray. All those in favor? Aye. Nays? The ayes have it. Thank you.